It is Monday night in East Lansing, Michigan. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Come on in, gather around. We are in East Lansing, Michigan, home of the number 17 ranked Michigan State Spartans, 4-0 after defeating the Nebraska Cornhuskers 23-20 in overtime at Spartan Stadium. Thrilling night. Michigan State, I wrote it. Everybody knows it. Everybody saw it. I mean, Michigan State was not the better team on that night. Well, maybe they were the better team when you take special teams into account. I wrote that. You guys may have seen that over at SpartanMag.com. Anyway, if you're not familiar with SpartanMag.com, come on in, gather around. This is the YouTube thing. Get together about once a week, do this stuff, have a good time with it. And we talk Michigan State football, Michigan State sports. Might open up the phone lines a little bit. If you're not familiar, SpartanMag.com is the website for Rivals.com covering Michigan State sports. And what we do over there at the Underground Bunker message board, which is a premium message board for a premium site, SpartanMag.com, Underground Bunker message board is the church of what's happening now with Michigan State sports, the daily narrative. Over there, I invited Michigan State Spartan fans, Spartan Maggers, if you will, those that subscribe to SpartanMag.com, to go ahead and post some questions about Michigan State football, and we will answer those questions or attempt to answer those questions today. And go ahead and post some questions over in the chat area. We'll be happy to check those out. Also, I've got to go over to the mailbag right now. I did not prepare a cheat sheet. I was busy going through that film, trying to go through some of that film one more time to get a few more clues on what would happen, what went right, what went wrong for the Spartans. A lot of things went wrong, especially on offense, but Michigan State survives 4-0. They will take on the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, 7:30 p.m. at Spartan Stadium this Saturday night. Another night game. Let me know what you feel about that. Good, bad, indifferent. Tell you what, the fans were great last Saturday night. Fans were great. I know that coming into the stadium, I hear that there's some obstacles that didn't used to be in place for students as well. Student section up in the upper deck didn't start filling in until about midway through the first quarter. I know sometimes with the way they scan tickets these days, there can be bottlenecks with traffic. Also, I'm not sure what's going on, but it was a little bit, some of it was a late arriving crowd, but the student section in the corner was full and loud early and had an impact. Noise had an impact. With those false starts, Nebraska's offensive line having trouble all season with penalties, and Michigan State's fans induced a few more of those. Let's get right to the questions. M. Johnson 2000 over at SpartanMag.com Underground Bunker message board asks, this is question number 1 from the mailbag. He says, what went wrong with the offense in the second half? He says, obviously, Michigan State could not get push up the middle, and I wish they have tried more bootlegs, wide receiver screens, and tried to roll Thorne out of the pocket. That's Matt from Ravenna via North Neighborhood. Looks like we just got a super chat from Nick Harrington. Thanks a lot, Nick. Nick Harrington. Appreciate that. Nick has a question. And if you do a super chat tip, it's a super chat, it's a tip jar, it's personal sponsorship of the programming. We always appreciate that. And if you do a tip jar like Nick Harrington did, your question immediately goes to the top. Nick Harrington says, how y'all doing? What's the word on the transfer situation, and should we expect more? Thanks a lot, Nick. Appreciate that question. I think Nick might have asked that question over at the bunker earlier. I was perusing the questions a few minutes ago, and I think that question came up. Big news late last night. Kalen Girvin transferring out. Also, Chase Klein. Basically, two guys that were second string last week. Chase Klein's been second string throughout his career at Michigan State. Both are former 4-star recruits. Hurts Michigan State's depth at the corner position and at the linebacker position. Kalen Girvin started last year at corner. Chase Klein was second string last year at Mike linebacker and weak side linebacker. He backed up both Antoine Simmons and Noah over at the other linebacker position. And got a lot of snaps last year, usually about 40 per game. This year down to about 20 per game. He's only backing up Quavaris Crouch at the weak side linebacker position. And against Nebraska, he only had 5 snaps, which were the fewest snaps he's had in a game since last year against Rutgers in the first game. I think he only had 3 snaps in that game. So Chase Klein not happy with his playing time, not happy being second string. Good player, good speed, playmaker, had a half sack in only 5 snaps against Nebraska. Without him, Michigan State's linebacker depth takes a little bit of a dent. And as long as Crouch stays healthy and continues to improve, might not be that big of a factor, but hurts a little bit. You lose second string linebacker like Chase Klein with all that experience, it hurts. And Kalen Girvin started at corner, did not start against Miami, went in against Miami, missed 2 tackles, came out of the game, didn't go back in, was dressed for this game. The official player report said that he did play on special teams, although I did not see that with my own eyes. He did not play on defense. He was dressed. Then the next day enters the transfer portal. Kalen Girvin made a mistake against Youngstown State. The 26-yard run that got out to the left sideline, running back touchdown. He came in too thin on that, did not leverage that properly from outside in. Otherwise, he was doing some good things this season. Now, there was a deep pass against Northwestern. Was not his fault. The safety was supposed to get over the top on that. I thought Kalen Girvin showed a lot of hustle and an improved speed when he chased down the running back. First play of the second half against Northwestern. Remember that play almost got out. Kalen Girvin, big play in that game, chases him down, tackle, and Northwestern ends up missing a field goal on that drive. The game was still very much in the balance at that time. Northwestern was gaining momentum. So Kalen Girvin was ranked the number 1 player in the state of Michigan as a high school senior at Detroit Cass Tech, and he moves on now. He's tweeted out, thanks to Michigan State, thanks to Mark D'Antonio, thanks to Mel Tucker, and the strength staff tweeted that out a few hours ago. But it hurts Michigan State's depth at corner. He was ahead of Chester Kimbrough, and Ronald Williams to begin the season. Kimbrough and Williams, a couple of transfers coming in from Florida and Alabama. We said that Kalen Girvin needed to improve with the arrival of those players from the transfer portal, and I think he did improve. It's still not quite enough to maintain his starting job for the entire season. Could have battled back, retaken that job. Either way, Michigan State was playing 3 cornerbacks quite a bit, and then a 4th cornerback, Chuck Brantley, played the Miami game. Chuck Brantley started the second half against Miami. So Girvin, people on the message board are asking, why did this happen? In my article, I reached out to Kalen Girvin via Twitter, did not hear back from him, not surprised about that. A little bit of a surprise because Kalen Girvin's high school coach, Thomas Wilcher, is on Michigan State's staff now. So it's a little bit of a surprise that the communication there was not perfect. Maybe communication was good. It's just a young man that wants a different direction. I'm not sure. But I was surprised. I know Big Movie Ron Armstrong was not surprised. I've not asked him for more about that. Don Strait coming in with the big old tip jar from Don Strait. Appreciate that, Don. Really do. So Girvin, it hurts when you lose a guy that's been a starting corner. I mean, if something happens to Williams or Kimbrough, you'd like to have Kalen Girvin on the sideline to go back in. If not, rally back to become the starter. I thought Girvin did a pretty good job tackling this year. Like I said, he started last year. I thought he improved and was a better player this year. But he's gone now, and Michigan State's depth not quite as good. So, both of those guys have redshirted. And yeah, they've got 1 more year of eligibility next year. They're both redshirt juniors this year. They'll be redshirt seniors next year, wherever they end up. And with the COVID NCAA rules, they will have a chance to come back for a 6th year if the coach at the program that they choose invites them back for a 6th year. Potentially, both players have two more years. They've both redshirted. Unless there's some rule I don't know about, they lose redshirt stats. It's not like if you transfer out inside of 4 games, it's not like you can get another year. It's not like these guys can preserve a year of eligibility, which was the case last year when some players hit the portal before game number 4, and 2 years ago when Connor Hayward entered the portal before game number 5 so that he could preserve redshirt status. Ended up, Connor Hayward did not stay in the portal, came back to Michigan State. I can understand if you want to preserve redshirt status, and if you have not redshirted, why you would want to transfer out before the 5th game. Because the 5th game, you lose redshirt status. You can't use that year as a redshirt. So these guys have already redshirted. Why would they do it now? I understand if they want to go to another program because they've been passed up on the depth chart. If they want to get more playing time at another program next year, you can do that. But you can also wait until after the end of the regular season, after Thanksgiving, before the bowl game, then enter the portal. And then you can transfer. You can take some unofficial visits, I guess, and transfer before the next semester starts in January. Why do it now when a team is 4-0? I don't know. That's the disappointing part, I think, if you're a Michigan State fan. Personally, I don't care. I wish the kids well. But I understand why Michigan State fans, some Michigan State fans are like, why are people leaving? But not ideal. Not ideal to lose a couple of depth players with their experience. So that's the name of that tune as far as I can tell. You guys can chime in, whatever you think. Let me go ahead. Let me see if I can find the... I'll edit this out. I'm trying to find the darn phone number. Here it is. There it is. Like I always say, it's a good thing this is not a plane. It's a good thing I'm not flying a plane or landing a plane with these headphones on. Anyway, back to the question. What went wrong on offense? I wish that they could have tried more bootlegs, wide receiver screens. Wide receiver screens, as much zone as Nebraska was playing, screens might not have worked all that well. Try to roll out of the pocket. Again, with zone, they're keeping an eye on that a little bit more. There was. Let me look at my notes here from the Nebraska game. Let me see if I can find. Nope. All right. Fifth drive of the first half. 1st and 10, first play of the drive. Okay. Michigan State did do a counter boot, and the safety bit on the run fake. You're exactly right. If you go back and look at the first play of the fifth drive, Michigan State was leading 10-3. Michigan State ran bootleg, run fake, 2 safeties deep, and the play side safety bit on that run fake. And Michigan State booted in that direction and hit Trey Mosley slot corner route behind that safety for 35 yards. And ends up being an elongated smash concept with a corner and a hitch by the wideout. The wideout was Naylor, and he took his hitch wide into the sideline, not far downfield because he's trying to open up that window back there for Mosley, but really occupied him with the hitch. Really well-designed play, and I've got a note here that if I do any film study over on the website, I wanted to break down that play. So they began a drive, and Michigan State's been really good with the first play of drives with Jay Johnson in a lot of these games in the 2 years that Mel Tucker's been head coach. First play of the drive, Michigan State a lot of times gets creative on a first play of the drive. Sometimes it's just a conventional run play inside, but a lot of times they'll do wrinkles, and that was a pretty good wrinkle. That worked well, and as far as I know, that was one of the only boots that they ran. So, I'm thinking the coaches might be thinking the same thing you're saying. Would like to see more boots, but you're asking what went wrong on offense. Again, could do an hour-long dissertation on this. Took another look a few minutes ago, just before we came on the air, because I knew people would be wondering about that. Took a look at Michigan State's. All their plays, all their drives in the second half. I think Michigan State only ran 18 plays in the second half. They only ran 6 plays in the third quarter, had the ball twice, 3 and out. So Michigan State, not counting the punt return for a touchdown, had the ball 5 times. 5 3 and outs. 15 plays. So when you categorize these things, we'll just go in order. You guys are crazy football fans. You don't mind getting into this, do you? We're gonna go under the hood and see what's wrong with the engine here. First play of the second half, inside zone, the game 3. On that one, Nebraska had 8 in the box. Nebraska stopped the run all night, primarily with 2 deep safeties. They did not bring a safety down to stop the run. Didn't have to. Defensive line was winning, and those linebackers were better than I anticipated. In the pre-snap read, I told you guys that those defensive tackles were the best defensive tackles Michigan State was going to play all year. The linebackers I undersold a little bit. Those guys were gritty. Those guys defeated blocks, hustled with correct angles. They were good. Linebackers were better than I gave them credit for. But there were many times when linebackers barely needed to get in there because the defensive linemen were swallowing it up so much. And the safeties did not have to get involved much at all. But first play of the second half, they brought an eighth into the box. Inside zone, gained 3. Not bad. 2nd and 7, split zone, cut block by Tyler Hunt. Haven't seen a lot of cut blocking up front from these guys in the last 2 years. Cut block early in the second half. Had decent movement on the left side with Horst and Duplain. It was uneven on the blocking was inconsistent, as you saw, against a good defensive line. Kenneth Walker, his second run of the second half, ran really hard, extra effort, 6 yards on 2nd and 7, got almost to first down yardage. Okay, it looks like Michigan State, right? They gained 3, gained 6, 3rd and 1. It's Michigan State football, right? 3rd and 1, under center, 2 tight ends, handed to Walker. He stopped for a tackle for loss. Kevin Jarvis misses the block. And this happened later in the half also. And this is what's difficult about playing a good defensive line that 2 gaps. Let's go to the phones. I'm not sure that this is working, because it's not coming through my headset. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Could you hear that? I apologize. I'm going to have to take that down because it's not... There's our buddy Nils Deco right now. Hey, Nils, can you hear me? Hey, Nils, you're on SpartanMag Live. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you, but I can't hear you through my headphones, so I don't think that these guys can hear you. So we're probably going to have to pull the plug on it. So I think the plane's going down. Usually this works. It worked during... Hey, wait a minute. I got it. Wait a minute. Well, I'm not sure. Hold on a second here. Hey, Nils, you there?
I'm here.
There we go. Got it now. That's only our second technical problem of the night. Hey, but we're off and rolling. Not bad. Not bad. Hey, Nils, before we get into what you have to say about this, I had a question from somebody. It's basically all-encompassing. What went wrong with the offense in the second half? And I think that's what everybody's talking about, and they're concerned about, and that's what they're wondering about. So I've talked about a couple of plays here. Michigan State only had the ball five times in the second half. All right, first time they had the ball, I just went through it to the audience here. I'm getting to the third down play now. Third play of the second half for Michigan State. 3rd and 1, inside zone, handed to Walker. Kevin Jarvis misses the block. Now, here's the deal on this one. Nebraska, very good at 2-gapping. Very good defensive tackles across the board. And I've talked about this before. 2-gapping is when a defensive lineman goes directly into the offensive lineman and engages him and controls him, and can either go to this shoulder to disengage or this shoulder to disengage. Either gap, he's going to either gap. 1-gapping is what Miami did. Instead of going into the offensive lineman, they tried to avoid the offensive lineman and just get straight into the gap. In order to 1-gap, you'll need the safety to help because you're down a gap. You 2-gap, and then you can play 2 safeties back, and it's kind of like playing with 12 people on the field. And defensive linemen that are very strong and robust and sturdy can get into you and knock offensive linemen back. Nils, we talked about it before. Back when Iowa was very good, it was like when Iowa was great at 2-gapping. Your offensive linemen, their heads would pop up like rock'em sock'em robots. The offensive linemen were doing it, and when you see offensive linemen's heads pop up like that, like rock'em sock'em robots, if you're from the 70s, that's when you know it's a good 2-gapping team. Nebraska, good 2-gapping team, getting into those guys, getting into it, firm, not giving up any movement. Okay, so you're going against a 2-gapping team. Offensive linemen are just taking, so they're having to, as an offensive lineman, you're just hitting squarely all night. And then on 3rd and 1, they didn't 2-gap. He 1-gapped. Kevin Jarvis got beat. It's not like Jarvis was beaten physically. It's like getting beat by a changeup when you're expecting a fastball. Does that make sense, Nils? And with when a team is very, very good at 2-gapping, and they're 2-gapping all night, and then boom, they do one on 3rd and 1, it's difficult. You give them, you tip your cap to them. I mean, I guess you could look on film to see what their tendencies are. I don't know for sure if they 1-gapped a lot on 3rd downs earlier in the year, but they did it twice in this game. I mean, they did it a few other times, but here they did it again. The third drive of the second half on an outside zone, Duplain and Horst were beaten by number 44, the pretty good defensive end. He one-gapped, got in on 3rd and 5. That was when Kenneth Walker was stopped for a loss of 6. Do you remember that? He was stopped for a loss of 6. Next play, 3rd and 11. That's when Jaden Reed trapped it on 3rd and 11. Remember that? Why was it 3rd and 11? Because they lost 6 yards on second down. Why did they lose 6 yards on second down? Because the defensive end one-gapped. And it's just really hard to block that. It's really hard. But that's part of being very good two-gapping defensive line, because it's like throwing a 97-mile-an-hour fastball. Well, I guess everybody in the majors throws 97 now. But a changeup is good when the harder you throw. If you don't throw hard, you can just sit on the changeup, catch up to the fastball. These guys, you sit on the one gap, you're not going to catch up to the two gap. It's so that's why that. All right, that's the first drive. That's why that went downhill. Second drive, 3 and out, 1st and 10, under center, fly sweep. Jaden Reed gains 2. Nebraska was perfectly aligned for a fly sweep on this play. Michigan State was under center, and I'm pretty sure it was one wide receiver to each side, one tight end to each side. It's what Saban and those guys used to call silver. 2 tight ends, 2 wides, symmetrical. And Nebraska was kind of symmetrical, but I mean they were like skewed a little bit, like they knew the play was coming. And they had the defensive end 44 way out in a wide 9 technique, like an outside linebacker. So you have the tight end, you've got Hayward out there trying to block 44 kind of in space. And Hayward's been doing better as a linebacker, but as a blocker, but he's not going to block that guy. And the 2 inside linebackers were untouched going over there to support the fly sweep. Gains 2. I mean, Michigan State ran a fly sweep to Reed once, and they ran a pop pass sweep to him once for like a gain of nothing on 3rd and 1. Good job by Nebraska getting people to the point of attack, almost like they knew what play was coming somehow. I don't know. We've talked about that in the board a little bit. I looked more closely to see what kind of communication was going on prior to that snap. Didn't see anything. Just good defense right there. All right, 2nd and 8, pass to Trey Mosley. That's the one where Trey Mosley got hit low and was injured. Remember on that one?
Yeah.
All right. On that play, they ran cover 2 over on the short side, quarters. So the corner did not bail with the release receiver. He stayed and squatted in the flat area, which is what you do in cover 2 halves. Cover 2 halves. So each safety has half of the field. So that corner lets that receiver go, and he stays in the flat. So they're throwing to Mosley across the middle. So that corner is waiting right there for him. Throws across the middle, bam, hit him hard. And when you see a big hit from a corner, it's usually cover 2. Remember that play against Iowa? Was it
Jeremy Ware?
Was it Jeremy Ware when he knocked that dude out and stepped over him?
Yeah, and then that's when we got the penalty, and all the Iowa fans were pissed because D'Antonio, they thought he was clapping.
Yeah.
He was standing over the guy, just making sure he was okay.
Yes, that was another example. Michigan State back then with D'Antonio and Narduzzi, they were a quarters team. Cover 4 zone. Wide receiver would release off the line of scrimmage. The widest corner, whichever corner, would go with him all the way to the end zone, wherever he wanted to go, stay on top of him. That's cover 4. Cover 2 halves would be to let him go, and the safety gets him over the top, and the corner squats in the flat. Perlis used to do it that way. Michigan State was quarters. But on that play with Jeremy Ware, quarters. No, so you're thinking quarters, he's bailing. You throw it out to this guy. He's got an opening. Should have an opening. 90% of the time against quarters, you got an opening. Except on that play, it wasn't quarters, it was halves. And guess what? Bam! You still there?
I'm here.
Bam! I messed up my microphone. Messed up my microphone. They're back. And Jeremy Ware knocked that guy out. Appreciate that guy for playing good football. Bless his heart. But that's one of those deals where you change the pitch count on a dude, change the pitch selection, and you make a play call expecting that corner to bail out of there with the wide receiver. But if they're playing halves instead of quarters, he's still right there. So he went to Mosley. You know, he's got to make reads real quickly. He anticipated that corner being out of there on the crosser. You know, when they go back over the film, which they've already done, they'll see that they should have thrown to the cover 2 hole, and Mosley would have worked as a kind of a late smash concept, a high-low. So Mosley made the catch, bless his heart, took a hard hit because Nebraska changed up their coverage a little bit, and that's when a team's playing good zone and they're allowed. See, Nebraska just kind of they just snowballs on you. because they're stopping the run with 4 because that D-line is so good, and they're two-gapping. It reminds me of some of Iowa Hawkeye defenses. So they don't have to put an extra safety in the box to stop the run. They can keep 2 safeties deep and stop the run, So then when you do go to the air, they can play tricks on you with zone and deliver hits like that. It just kind of compounds. You know what I'm saying, Nils?
They were on to us. I mean, you talked about it earlier. I mean, they were into our playbook, and maybe after 3 games, there's some tendencies that they saw on the film. I mean, Michigan State was, Nebraska, we were well scouted in that game from the get-go.
By Nebraska.
Every scenario. Yeah.
Yes.
All the screen passes were shut down. I mean,
the fly sweep, the pop sweep, shut down. So you're right. Go ahead.
But, the tight end situation where Hayward makes that, fantastic, All-American type play right down there and gets us down inside the 10. I mean, I thought there was an opportunity with Hayward. I thought he was the one mismatch that Michigan State might have taken advantage of because they couldn't take away everything. I mean, They tried to take away Jaden. I mean, Speedy Naylor was pretty much erased. Jaden Reed was great in special teams. He only had, 4 catches, 59 yards. But I think that, a situation like that, get Hayward more involved because he was ready to play that night.
He was, and, Michigan State, when you get in a situation like that where Michigan State only ran, how many plays did Michigan State run?
They ran 58, something like that.
Yeah, so was it 53, and 30 are rushing plays, so only 23 pass attempts. Well, there were a couple scrambles in there. So if you're only throwing the ball if you're going to the air 23 times when you're not sacked or scrambling, so 23 times, it doesn't, there's not a lot of footballs to go around. So that's another compounding problem. When you're not getting first downs, you're not getting deep into your play, into the plays that you want to run. As far as how many times they was targeted, let me find this here. Hayward was targeted. Connor Hayward was targeted 3 times, had 2 catches. One of the times and there was another time that they were looking to throw to him, but there was a coverage sack down in the red zone. That's when they threw the flag and then picked it up because they thought the receiver was tackled. So they were looking for him on that one. But you're right. Maybe they could have gotten some mismatch opportunities with him. Targeted Mosley 6 times, Reed 5 times, and Naylor 3 times, and Hayward 3 times. And then, Joyner once, Simmons once, Walker twice, and that's it. They messed up here a little bit. They've got Simeon Barrow on here. Of course, he's defensive lineman. So there's two other targets to other people that I didn't mention. So what else on your mind, Nils? You want me to go back over the rest of the second half or not really?
No, I mean, what I just think is, we talked about this earlier, that was a trestle ball type win where you just hang in there. Don't let them beat you quickly. Make them, go 80 yards. There's another, feather in the cap of Bryce Behringer. He did an amazing job averaging 58 yards a punt in that game. And without him, they don't win the game. I mean, so many hidden yards in special teams. And then, Jaden Reed with the 62-yard punt return. And he had also a nice 41-yard kick return. But, that was a total team win. 7 sacks. I don't know when the last time Michigan State had 7 sacks in a football game.
And especially with Beasley, 7, no. Especially with Beasley going out early in the game to get that from Panisha, the best game of the career for Panisha, for Jacob Panisha. And Nils, we're talking about this yesterday off the air. This is what I was going to write for the .comp after the game. .comp is an opinion article we do at SpartanMag.com, but it is a night game. Really didn't get started writing till about 1 in the morning after we did a video thing and some other stuff. Did a 3-2-1, which is 3 things we learned in the game, 2 questions, 1 prediction. And I was planning for the 3-2-1 to be a short story, but I ended up getting too deep into it. And, when I start writing about X's and O's, there's, you're in a hurry. It's 2 and 3, 4 in the morning, and there's some things in there. I would have liked to have watched the film another couple times before I wrote a couple of those things. But anyway, did the best I could. Got some good feedback on it. But that thing ended up being 3,000 words. Then it's 5 in the morning, and I've got family stuff I have to do the next day, hockey game, baseball doubleheader, all that stuff. There have been days when I've written .comp until 7 in the morning and go to bed at daylight. I couldn't push it on that particular day. But what I was going to write, I had something I was going to write. It was about, some of the key players in that game. And the way they arrived at Michigan State. And Bryce Behringer, you mentioned him. That's a guy that went to the University of Illinois as a walk-on, didn't make it there, transferred to Michigan State as a regular student. Wasn't planning to play football. Tried out for football, went out for it, whatever, punted. Michigan State said, don't call us, we'll call you. He's ready to settle in, just be a regular student at Michigan State, coming out of Notre Dame Prep in Oakland County, outside of Pontiac. Then that year, in I think it was 2018, Hart Barger went down with an injury at Arizona State. Tyler Hunt punted that year, remember? Went down with an injury. I mean, Rocky Lombardi punted a little bit. A couple other people punted. And Behringer, they called him up and said, dude, come out here, try out again. And they put him on the field. He punted 15 times that year out of necessity, averaged only 32 yards a punt. Was not good enough. Bryce Behringer wasn't planning to play college football anymore. That was in 2018. Hangs around. Hart Barger comes back for another year. Tyler Hunt punts for a year. Then Tyler Hunt decides to become a tight end. Behringer's still around. And last year, Behringer starts and averages 43 yards a punt. Michigan State went out and got a transfer punter from UTEP, but Bryce Behringer beat him out. Had a good year last year, 43.6. And then this year comes out, he's having a good year. 58 yards in this game, was one of the key players in the entire game. Behringer. Unbelievable. How about that kid?
I mean, he's going to be all Big Ten at this rate. He's averaging, 50.3 yards a punt?
Goodness gracious. And advertising major?
I mean, the thing about his ball, though, it drops. It doesn't. He's had 7 inside. He's dropped 7 on of those punts inside the 20, which is impressive. I mean, I think that's like 35% of his 20 punts. I mean, he's had a heck of a year. I mean, right now he's all Big Ten punter right now as we speak.
Wow, they're glad they have him. He was an impact player in that game. And look at the other guys. Jaden Reed. Punt return touchdown, flea flicker touchdown. Jaden Reed transfers from Western Michigan to Mark D'Antonio. Chester Kimbrough transfers from Florida, gets an interception in overtime, almost took it back to end the game. And, of course, Kenneth Walker was bottled up most of the game, but he had a big run in overtime to set up the game-winning points. Transfer from Wake Forest, everybody knows that. Connor Hayward, you just mentioned him. Had a big reception, broke 3 tackles. That was a key play in one of the drives that set up a field goal for Michigan State. Everybody knows that Connor Hayward, once upon a time, entered the portal to leave Michigan State. Mel Tucker gets hired. I don't think Hayward got much attention in the portal, as much as he expected. He decided he wanted to come back. He gained a lot of weight while he was in the portal, wanted to come back. Lucky for him, Mel Tucker knew him from Mel Tucker's recruiting days at the University of Georgia, had a good talk with him, invited him back. Connor Hayward had a big play, big game. He's had a big season, but he very easily could not have been here, just like Bryce Behringer, just like these other guys, Reed, Kimbrough, Walker. And the other one, Jacob Panisha, career night. And you and I talked about this. When the transition of coaching staffs, D'Antonio retires, Tucker's hired, the old defensive ends coach, Chuck Bulla, was not retained. Jacob Panisha voiced his displeasure on Twitter. And then, was not shown the door. We asked Mel Tucker about it. His first press conference, just before COVID hit, he had a press conference, and then he had another little press conference at a basketball press conference. He had a little round table. I think it was like an off-the-record round table. And we asked him about Panishuk, and he said he had a conversation with him. That was right when the Panishuk thing was still fresh. That had happened 1 week prior. And Tucker said, I spoke with him. We talked to him, ironed it out, whatever. I mean, he could have easily shown Panishuk the door. So in this game against Nebraska, some of these guys, Panishuk, Hayward, Kenneth Walker, Kimbrough, Reed, Behringer, the main guys in this game, all of them, I mean, you could do a documentary on their football lives, just on their circuitous route to East Lansing. And they all come together on that night for that game.
Tucker's taking a page out of the Chris Beard college basketball book. If you ever look at Chris Beard, what he does year to year with the roster and turning it over, and always has a roster that can compete, going back from the days when he was at Fort Scott Junior College and he was a ABA coach in South Carolina somewhere. I mean, I think Tucker's ability that he was in the NFL those 10 years and be able to turn over a roster to implement those players sooner than later, because that's so much of it, right? I mean, you can take a transfer, but if he can't play for you that immediately, well, you wasted your time. And so if you look at all the guys that are playing, even Harold Joyner, that last play where he catches that 8-yard pass, he made a great tackle on special teams, Joyner did. Yeah. I think made a nice sweep tackle. I mean, look at all the guys, that have made, Horst starts, right? Walker starts. Kimbrough Williams are starting. Van Summeren's a backup backer. Crouch is a starter. I mean, you've got unbelievable impact from these transfers. And I think as you move forward, Michigan State's going to be able to really sell that going forward, because there's the one school that didn't lie to these kids and say, hey, you can play right away. We got 6 or 7 spots. They're ready to go. And I think you'll see maybe on the offensive and defensive line next year, I think you'll always try to find 1 or 2 of those, just because you can never have too many of those kind of players.
I think defensive end, I think they're going to be in the market for defensive end in the portal, because you have Beasley moving on, you'll have Panisha moving on. Fletcher isn't quite coming on. Drew Jordan is just kind of okay. He's a guy. And I'm forgetting one other one. But
Petrowski is good, though. Petrowski is a plus player.
He's pretty good. Avery Dunn is not on the field yet. Tank Brown, we're not sure where he is. They're going to have to hit the portal for a defensive end or 2, I'm guessing. And, the kid from Tennessee hit the portal a week or 2 ago, Akello or whatever his name was. We never really saw him in practice either. So defensive end, but, in this era of the portal, in the old days, or all the way up until a couple of years ago, teams would cycle up, cycle down at different positions, but some programs never need to cycle down again, theoretically. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. I mean, you look at your Alabamas, you look at your Georgias, they've always got 2 and 3 deep along the defensive line, so that's the reason they are a consistent winner. And I think in time, Michigan State will have that, because I think Tucker really wants to develop his defensive and offensive line, but right now the stopgap is to find a guy or 2 that maybe wants a fresh start, like the guys we have this year.
Now, what are your thoughts about the program in general? Or what else do you have on your mind about this team? 4-0. Michigan State fans are excited. You watched the game on TV. How did the crowd sound? How did it come across on television when you were watching?
Fantastic. It was old school. It's like you didn't even forget about COVID. It was a well-shown game on FS1. What's interesting was Mark Helfrich was the analyst.
Yeah.
And, Frost was a coach for him. That whole staff had worked for him. And it was interesting. People were complaining about it, but I like Helfrich. I always think he's pretty even-keeled.
Yeah.
Like most of those guys from the Northwest. They're not too over the top. But, Michigan State, the representation they have on a Friday night or a Saturday night football game is as good as it gets. It's not a whiteout, but I'd put it up in the top, 10%. It looked good. That punt, return of Jaden Reed, the interception. The last half an hour of that game was just amazing, the back and forth, and Michigan State just woke up. That third quarter and, 12 minutes of the fourth quarter were just, they weren't there. But the defense kept them in the game, though. Panisha has that strip sack that Petrowski picks up, and then they can't take advantage of that, and that was the concern, because, you think, okay, Michigan State has to score here, and they don't do anything with it. They were out of sorts at that time, but, that's why you have special teams as well, and they do that fake punt. I've never seen anything like that. I'm like, how did those guys not notice where that ball was going? Especially the punter that kicked it. It was Keystone Cops in that situation.
Yeah.
They all went to the right, and there's Jaden Reed just running free.
Yeah, and I was wrong about saying that Naylor fair did a signal as a fair catch. You can't do that. He acted like he was going to catch it, is what he did, which is almost as good as signaling. But the punter shanked it right to Reed. And the amazing thing is, Michigan State had that play on and that ploy on to try to surprise them. Didn't end up having to surprise them because it happened to be a shank right into their plans. But they had a plan. It's like when Auburn beat Alabama on the kick 6, they had a plan just in case someone ever misses a field goal from long range. Right? They had a plan. They prepared, and luck is what. 70% preparations, 30% perspiration, whatever those percentages are, but preparation got them in there. Meanwhile, at the end of the game, like you were saying, Michigan State had that strip sack by Panisha. Michigan State was really coming alive. Fans had a lot to do with that. But toward the end of that game and into overtime, you had 2 different teams. And Michigan State didn't win last year much, but they're 3-0, and you had teams with 2 different belief sets. Michigan State was like, okay, we're going to win this game somehow. Nebraska was like, oh crap, how are we going to lose this game? Because they've been losing too much. There's a lot of pressure there for obvious reasons. Nebraska is a very good team when it comes to blocking and tackling and trying to keep that quarterback corralled. And if they get to the point where they can start finishing, they're going to be good. I agree with what Scott Frost says. They've got a good team. They're good. If that football game had been a boxing match, Nebraska would have won the decision on all 3 cards.
And then the fact, I think when Omar Manning went in for that fumble, I think there was a fumble that Michigan State should have had, but Omar Manning ended up recovering. I think Panisha pulled it out of his hands. Omar Manning he tapped out after that. I don't know if you noticed, but he was not the same football player after that play. He got in there, he got his bell rung. And that was the amazing thing about Adrian Martinez, because he took some shots. I don't know what happened to him in that first series where he, went to the locker room. I don't know if he got stitches or something, but I was amazed about how tough he was.
Yeah.
And, he wasn't great late, but he was good the second, third, and half the fourth quarter. He was really good.
Absolutely. And that long run that he had, Michigan State had all the momentum at that point, and I think Michigan State was up 7-0, and he got out of that sack situation and got away.
Summer missed him initially, right?
Yes. And
then he
the balance that he showed to stay on his feet was tremendous. Darius Snow missed a tackle on that one also, and Darius Snow it was a blitz, 6-man rush. So Snow and Van Summeren were blitzing. Snow had a shot at him, missed. You're not seeing Snow miss many tackles. Van Summeren, haven't seen him enough to see whether he's a sure tackler or not, but that was an expensive one. Gets loose for about 40 or 50 yards, sets up a field goal drive, changes the momentum, and the game was pretty much tit for tat after that. Well, Nebraska dominated the second half. The rest of the first half was pretty much even from that point on. That was a game changer. Snow missed that tackle, but Snow, I can't remember many other plays of his that stood out, but I remember a couple plays by Michael Dowell to the negative. Michael Dowell missed a couple of tackles in this game to the point where I'm wondering if that competition could close up a little bit also with Snow coming on, and Dowell needs to keep improving. Like I used to say about Kalen Girvin, Kalen better keep improving because these guys are coming around. Ronald Williams struggled in that opening game against Northwestern, did not start against Youngstown. He's slowly gotten his footing. You have to remember, Ronald Williams was a guy that was a quarterback in high school, went to junior college, played wide receiver for 1 year, then moved to defensive back his second year of JC. Had a really good year, got plucked out, recruited by Alabama. Everybody knows the story. Broke his arm at training camp, missed half the year. Played mop-up duty the last 3 or 4 games, then transferred out. So the guy, when he was playing at Northwestern, it was his first start as a Division I college football player. Not only that, it was his first non-mop-up time. It's the first time he's ever been in like a real game during a close game in his life at cornerback, right? So, we can forgive him for having a couple of mistakes in the Northwestern game, but he's found his footing. Now he's showing a lot of that potential that Nick Saban saw in him when they offered him a contract or a scholarship coming out of junior college. What do you make of Kalen Girvin and Chase Klein entering the portal at this point?
I mean, it is what it's part of, it's 2021. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, these kids, that's what we're going to see more and more of. I mean,
but what about
you just have to know how to balance.
But what about this? I mean, I understand Connor Hayward did it because he was passed up in the playing group 2 years ago. He wanted to transfer before he played his 5th game so that he could preserve that year of eligibility, right? Well, these 2 guys have already redshirted. Transferring now, there's no difference, as far as I know, unless there's some rule that changed. There's no difference between transferring now or transferring after Thanksgiving. You're still going to lose this year. You've already redshirted. You're 4-0. You got these teammates trying to work towards something. I've never walked in another man's shoes. I don't judge. But I have a hard time processing that one, Nils. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, the interesting thing is the Chase Klein thing. He hasn't mentioned Tucker's name at all in his goodbye letter.
Yeah.
So he got his feelings hurt. I mean, he makes the sack on Saturday. I mean, maybe the coaches should have played him more than 5 plays. He was the fourth linebacker, right?
Yes. He was backing up Crouch. Last year he backed up Crouch and Noah also.
So, I mean, and I thought he made a nice play against Northwestern on that wheel route. It was like a tight end out and up, and he was in coverage. I thought he'd gotten more athletic.
He moves well.
With him.
He added 10 pounds. He does move well. And last year, like I said, he got a lot of snaps because he was backing up Stanley and Simmons at 2 positions. He was backing up both of those guys, Noah Harvey and Antoine Simmons. You're backing up at 2 positions and did a pretty good job with it. Got a super chat from Sparty Matt. Appreciate that. Got a super chat tip jar from him. Now, if I can find my sound effects. I think I just messed something up. anyway, it's a difficult one. I don't know. It's because this team needs depth there. It's not like you can just start losing redshirt juniors that are experienced and pretty good players. Those guys are pretty good players. They could start at a lot
I just wonder why they couldn't talk them off the ledge. You know what I mean? It's like a situation where, I mean, like you're saying, though, why are they leaving after 4 games? I mean, I'd like to know the exact specifics. You'll probably find out this week about it, but you'll probably find out tomorrow at the press conference. But it's odd that, why wouldn't they just wait out the whole season and then have their super senior year, right?
Repeat that again, please.
Wouldn't they have their super senior year no matter what? I mean, if they played throughout the rest of the year, the next 8 games?
As long as wherever they end up, that coach has to welcome them back, has to invite them back. But they've got, by the NCAA rules, they've got next season and the year after. Yes, they'll be a redshirt senior next year and a chance to be a super senior the year after that. But I don't know. If you're Michigan State, you got to hope that you stay healthy there, because those guys that have been on the field. I've got a question here from Sparty Matt, who he had a super chat tip in the tip jar. So when you do that, your question goes to the top. And he says, what was Nebraska doing scheme-wise to stop Michigan State's run offense? Coach Tucker seemed cagey about answering that question in the post-game press conference. X's and O's, nothing outlandishly creative. They're two gapping up front, and Michigan State had trouble blocking those defensive tackles I talked about in the pre-snap read. They were going to be the best defensive tackles Michigan State faced. Those linebackers were good with their angles. They could hit and shed, and they were quick. They were sturdy at the linebacker level, and the safeties rarely had to get involved in the run game. I mean, Nebraska was getting it stopped with their front seven. That's a question from Spartan Matt, and that gets back to the mailbag question I was getting into a moment ago about what went on, why Michigan State's offense struggled in the second half. And I got to find my notes to get back into that one. You know how it is, Nils. I go under the hood and go deep on these things, and we just went through the first drive. Only had 5 drives. All right, so second drive, 1st and 10, fly sweep. Reed gains 2. 2nd and 8, Trey Mosley got hit by the guy staying home, cover 2 quarters. Or I'm sorry, cover 2 halves. Cover 2. It's cover 2. People call it cover 2, or some people call 25 or 2 deep man under cover 2 man. And people in the NFL call it that. To me, cover 2 is cover 2 halves. I've been trying to call it halves, but to me, it's cover 2. The corner squats in the flat. So Mosley got hit hard on that one. That was second down, gained 3 yards. Actually, just I don't know. But anyway, it was 3rd and 7. Very next play, Jalen Naylor is open on double slants, and Thorne just missed him. So there were 2 or 3 or 4 times when Thorne was just plain inaccurate. I'm not going to rip on him.
I think that's what he was picked up, though. That's what I thought. I think he got digged up late in the first half. He was never the same.
He was more inaccurate in this game than we've ever seen him, and he was out there playing head first, putting it out there for his team and his teammates. I'm not going to criticize him at all, but his accuracy was not great, and we saw it right there on that one. So that's the first 2 drives of the second half, 3 and out, 3 and out. As far as run plays, the first play of the second half was good, gain of 3. Second one was good, gain of 6. It's 3rd and 1. So the run game is not bad. It's 3rd and 1, and I told you what happened on that one. Jarvis got beat by one gapping defensive tackle. All right. So then on this one, 1st and 10, fly sweep, gains 2. Then they pass it incomplete. It's not like they stopped the run, but Michigan State went to the air because the run game wasn't working, right? So that's it. That's all. That's the only plays they ran in the third quarter. Those 6 plays, right? 3rd and 1, Jarvis gets beat inside. On the 2nd and 8, when Mosley got hit, that's a read thing. You can go to the cover 2 hole on that one when they look at film that he didn't go to the right place with the ball. It was a completion. Easy for me to say up in the press box with a coffee and a donut. I mean, every time that I criticize an athlete like this or say something that sounds critical, I need to rip on myself first and point out that Peyton Thorne is better at football than I've ever been at anything in my life. So when I say he should have went to the cover 2 window, I'm just talking about it clinically. I'm not criticizing him as a player. You understand that, Nils? Is that fair?
Oh, yeah.
All right, 3rd drive. This was after the Panisha fumble, sack fumble. Third drive, 1st and 10, back to pass, good coverage, scrambles out, keeps, gains a 5, got smacked. That was when that was probably the hardest hit he took all night. So now it's 2nd and 5, they go outside zone. That's when number 44, the defensive end, pretty good one, he one gapped on that play. And he beat Horst and Duplain inside. Michigan State is zone blocking to the left, so they're expecting 2 gapping all night, 2 gapping. And on that play, he just sneaks into 1 gaps, and it's a revolving door, and he tackles Kenneth Walker for a loss of 6. We talked about that earlier. 3rd and 11, throw to Jaden Reed. It's in the ground, trapped low. You look at that again, easy for me to say, but Peyton Thorne in practice hits that guy higher, doesn't have to go down to trap it. You know what I'm saying? But remember, two plays earlier, Thorne really took a hard hit on that keeper. Does that affect him on that 3rd and 11 throw? Is it a little lower because of that? Maybe so. That's a third drive.
I thought so. I think he was.
So that's it. So Michigan State only ran the ball 1 time out of or to tail. So Kenneth Walker only had, on 3rd and 1 when Jarvis got beat on the first drive, 3rd and 1 he got beat. Kenneth Walker did not carry the ball in the next drive, and in the next drive hadn't carried it until 2nd and 5, and then 1 gapping again, outside zone. And you know what? That's kind of interesting also. They rarely 1 gapped, but those 2 times that they did, Walker just happened to get a handoff. It's as if they knew Walker was getting a handoff. You can look at Walker and you know that he's going to get a handoff, 45% of the time, right? But they 1 gapped on that one. Michigan State. So if a team is not 1 gapping, you don't run any traps. You don't run as many gap plays usually. Anyway, all right. So next drive, it doesn't take long to get through this. They didn't have many plays in the second half. So then Reed traps it and you got to punt. All right. The 4th drive. This was it. All right. So Michigan State goes to the air, throws to Naylor on a comeback. Cornerback was bailing and Thorne missed him again. So what's wrong with the offense in the second half? Thorne makes a read when Mosley gets hit. Thorne misses a guy on double slants on 3rd down. Thorne throws low on 3rd and 11. Here, 1st and 10, incomplete through behind him. And Thorne said after the game about himself, he said, I left some plays on the field. He knew it. So X's and O's wise, Nebraska had some grown men playing good football. It wasn't X's and O's.
Those defensive tackles were impressive.
That was the whole deal. All right, so incomplete on 1st down. 2nd down. Now here, Michigan State goes to a screen pass. Michigan State goes formation of the boundary. 2nd time in the game they did this. They put trips over to the short side. And Nebraska starts communicating. Michigan State fakes a bubble screen out to trips and tries to come back to a middle screen to Hayward. Your guy Hayward, right? Nebraska, I've never seen a team sniff out a screen like they did. They knew that screen pass was coming, and they were all over it. It went nowhere, threw it into the ground, incomplete. Now it's 3rd and 10. Now on this one, Michigan State, this was an X's and O's thing for Michigan State. Michigan State 3rd and 10, back to pass. They run 4 receivers out, and they keep 1 blocker in, 1 running back in to block. And all 4 receivers are running vertical downfield. I don't necessarily mean like vertical deep, but out of the TV screen, 15, including Tyler Hunt, the slot receiver to the right. They're all vertical, and Nebraska comes with a blitz. So they're blitzing 6. Michigan State has 6 blocking 6. That ball's got to come out. Kenneth Walker takes on a linebacker, can hold him up for a second. Luke Campbell did really well against 44 on that play. Jarvis got beat to the outside, but Jarvis had to block inside first because that blitz was coming, then react back out to the outside. Didn't get there in time. The guy got around. So it ended up being a party in the backfield, and it's a sack. But if it's a 6-man rush, and 6 are in to block 6, somebody's got to be running a hot route. Somebody's got to be running a side adjust. Someone's got to break off a slant. And I guess Tyler Hunt was maybe the guy that should have done it because he's a slot receiver. But if you go back and look at number 13 who was guarding him, number 13 is an athletic slot linebacker for them. He is really shaded inside to take away a slant. So maybe Hunt saw that and tried to option route downfield. I'm not sure. But that happened against Miami also when the other team brought just almost. I don't say they didn't bring the house, but they brought most of the house. Right? When that happens, you can't be in a pocket with 4 guys going downfield. You don't have time for someone to get open. So, I mean, I wouldn't give anybody in that offensive line a negative grade on that for pass protection. I don't think. Yet 4 people met at the quarterback on that play. Ball's got to come out. Thorne held it as long as he could and took a hit on that. So. again, so they're stopping the run here and there. Thorne, they contained Walker. Walker ended up averaging 3.2 yards a carry. Not terrible. It's not like some of those games we've seen in the past where when Ohio State was great and, holding people under 2 yards a carry. So that's it. All right, that's a sack. It's third down. And let's see, was that the sack? All right, wait. They had one more. So then Michigan State gets the punt return touchdown, and Michigan State gets the ball one more time. 1st and 10, throw to Naylor, threw behind him again. 2nd and 10, 3-man rush, no one open. If it's a 3-man rush, they're covering with 8. So they're covering with 8. I didn't put in my notes how many receivers Michigan State sent out. So it's 8 people covering 5, maybe 4. Nobody's open, flushed, got rid of it. 3rd and 10, scramble again. That's when he threw to Joyner for 9 yards, just short of the first down. So that's 15 plays. That's it. That's all you get in the second half. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 plays. Doesn't take long to go over all of them. Half of them are throws. How many carries did Walker have? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. 4. Kenneth Walker had 4 carries in the second half. So we can say they stopped the run about. He only had 4 carries. And on 2 of those, his offensive linemen were beaten by a surprise one gap. To Nebraska's credit, they're that good. They can execute the one gap when they need to. Compound interest in defense. Nebraska was good. Did a good job with it. They're 2-3. They're the best 2-3 team in the country. It reminds me of some of these Iowa teams we've seen in the past that have had bad records in September that just go on a roll. I don't know if Nebraska is going to do that because they still have to play Iowa, Ohio State, and Michigan, I think. And they can beat any of those teams. I said that last week during the VCast. I said Nebraska, they're playing Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Iowa. They can beat any of those teams on a given day. This is after, we saw them a month ago just crap the bed against Illinois. A lot of people thought I was crazy. I don't know. People still think I'm crazy, and maybe I am, but I'm not wrong about Nebraska. If Frost can keep them together, keep them physical, keep them heading in the right direction, they're going to beat some teams. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they are. I got to sign off, Jim. I apologize. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you calling in and being a sounding board for us. Appreciate it, man. There he goes, Nils Deco. Let's go over here to the chat area. We're an hour into this. We've only gotten into one question, but that question was the question, right? What went wrong with the offense in the second half? That's why we tackled it and went in as in depth as we did. And we go in depth like that because we're crazy that way. It's not a radio show. You can't do this on the radio because you wouldn't have any listeners. Then you wouldn't have any advertisers. But here with all you crazy people like me, you don't mind going underneath the hood, trying to get to the root of these things. And can do it better a couple days later after looking at it again. Some of the things we do right after the game, I don't know. It's anyway, let's go right to the top of the chat area. Rob South was the first one to chime in.
Call from
Noah.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
All right, let's go to Pennsylvania. Noah, how you doing, man?
Doing good.
How about those Spartans?
Doing pretty good. Better than I thought they were.
Oh, yeah? You called the show a month or so ago before the season, right? Was it?
Yeah.
And you were optimistic back then. So even you, as a young, optimistic Spartan fan in Pennsylvania, they're even better than even better than you thought they were.
Yeah.
Way to be.
And I thought we were crap to bed to Miami, but we didn't.
So I did too. I did not expect Michigan State to beat Miami in the preseason when I looked at the schedule. But then as that game drew closer and I saw some of the problems Miami was having, the problems they had against Appalachian State, I thought Michigan State could match up well as long as they could handle that heat. That was a big variable. And Michigan State went out there and proved us right on that one. What do you think about Western Kentucky?
I think we should probably beat them, but they must be Indiana, so you can't overlook them.
You're exactly right. Exactly right. I think the score is 38-35 or 35-33, something like that. Western Kentucky.
33-31.
33-31, thank you. Western Kentucky was down 14-0 and I think 17-7. I watched some of it today. I'm only about halfway through the second quarter. Western Kentucky, very good, with the air raid offense. The head coach, the offensive coordinator, is from the Mike Leach, Kingsbury coaching tree, and they will challenge you with air raid. It's the Texas Tech stuff, the old Texas Tech stuff. Receivers all over the place, and if you creep out too wide, they'll hit you with that sprint draw, smoke draw, and they're gonna be a little bit of a headache. If the former D'Antonio coaching staff, if they were involved here, they would do it the way they used to do it in the past, and they would give up a lot of those slot completions like they did against Baylor, and they would probably concede 500 yards to Western Kentucky coming on the field.
I remember that game. Similar to that Washington State team we faced in the Holiday Bowl.
Similar. They had a different quarterback for different reasons that day. But you're right, man. You are a Spartan fan. If you remember all those aspects of it.
I mean, I think we have a shot to beat Ohio State.
I am not going to say you're crazy, because Ohio State. I mean the situation on defense, I've been saying, was a problem last year before Michigan State played Ohio State. I said they are not going to win the national title. Kerry Coombs should not be the defensive coordinator. I'm surprised Ryan Day hired him. Then, to my surprise a little bit, Ohio State went on to play in the national title game, did not win that game, but they went that far despite their defense. But then this year number 2 under Coombs, it usually takes 2 years for an overmatched coach to finally start showing some leaks, start springing up. And this year...
And that one Ohio State player, he quit during the game against Akron.
Yeah, Pope is his last name, right? Linebacker. Yeah. He only had 2 tackles all of last year. A lot of Michigan State fans are interested in him because on his Twitter now he's got a picture of a Michigan State shirt. People are wondering what that means. That guy was a big 4-star recruit out of Virginia, was ranked the number 100 player in the country coming out of high school, coming out of Virginia when he went to Ohio State. But he's not done much at Ohio State, and I didn't see the episode, but he had some sort of tantrum in the second quarter and left and said some mean things on social media, then apologized, but he's off the team. So, some people on the Underground Bunker message board at Michigan State, SpartanMag.com, they're curious about it. They're kind of excited. Yeah, bring that guy in. I'm like, well, I don't know. Like I said, he had 2 tackles last year.
Especially if Chase Klein's leaving, bring him in to replace Klein.
Well, like I just said, I mean, the guy who didn't really light it on fire at Ohio State. So.
But they're more talented than we are at linebacker.
Well, he's a talented guy, but he's a redshirt junior. He's had plenty of time to crack the code there at Ohio State. I don't know. I mean, they've probably seen him. I'm sure they've probably already looked at his film. Can they get their hands on practice film? Maybe, maybe not. Can they get their hands on a spring game film? I don't know, but I'm sure they've looked into it. I mean, there's a reason he's got a Michigan State shirt on his Twitter. I'm not sure what that is, but I think Michigan State's going to be an attractive landing spot, an attractive competitor in the portal circuit. Is the portal circuit, is that a thing now? In portal recruiting. Michigan State's got to be pretty strong in that area because they've shown, like Nils said, the previous caller, they've shown that if you transfer to Michigan State, you'll get a shot. And secondly, there's a lot of players out there that enjoy playing for Mel Tucker. So add those together. I think they've got a chance in the portal. Might not need to have to go out and just get the first guy that comes available, especially he's an Ohio State guy. He's a high-profile guy. Is he a fit? I'm not sure. I don't know. But I'm sure they've already looked into it.
I mean, another surprise was North Carolina State beating Clemson.
Yeah,
they did.
I didn't see that game. Now, Clemson all of a sudden can't do anything on offense, right? Their offensive line is gone in the tank. So all of a sudden,
it reminds me of our 2019 game against Arizona State.
Yes. So Michigan State was a prolific school record-setting offense in 2015. Good offense. 2016 fell off a little bit, and then it really hit the. 2016 it was bad, and it was bad in 17 and 18. But basically, you didn't have the same players. Clemson right now does not have the same players. They don't have the offensive line. Gus Malzahn at Auburn a couple of years ago, the offensive line went in the tank, and he was once upon a time an offensive genius. The genius can evaporate when you don't have the blockers up front. Clemson's finding that out right now.
I think that Michigan game might be the Big Ten East title game.
Whoa! Wow, can we handle that? Can we? I mean, as as a human race. If the Big Ten East comes down to Michigan versus Michigan State on October 30th, man, that'd be something. Michigan's playing pretty well. They had trouble in the second half against Rutgers. Michigan State had trouble in the second half against Nebraska. At this point, I doubt that these teams can continue to clip off win after win after win. I think there's some pretty good parity in the Big Ten East. I think Penn State's pretty good. Ohio State's, they're not quite what they used to be. Maryland is the best they've been in a while. Rutgers is the best they've been in a while. Michigan State's going to tangle with them in a couple of weeks. Indiana's trying to get off the mat. And in college football these days, it's hard to clip off win after win after win. There's a lot of parity, and I think that's going to be the case in the Big Ten East here coming up pretty soon. It might be wrong. I don't know. I like your enthusiasm.
Purdue's going to be I feel like if we're going to lose any game on the road, it might be Purdue.
Now, Purdue just squeaked by Illinois this week, right?
Yeah.
I've not taken a close look at them yet. I don't know what they've got. I mean, I watched them against who did they beat? West Virginia or something like that? Was it?
They beat
Purdue had a non-conference. Oregon State, right?
Yeah. They fell short to Notre Dame.
Yeah, and Maryland beat West Virginia. That's not bad.
Yeah.
You got Big Ten teams. Maryland, who's like a middleweight in the Big Ten, light middleweight. They go beat West Virginia.
Yeah.
West Virginia almost beat Oklahoma last weekend. So Maryland is. I mean that Tagovailoa at quarterback, he's explosive. Rutgers played pretty good football in the second half against Michigan. Really found something. So Michigan State's playing well right now, but the longer you stay undefeated, the harder it is to stay undefeated because teams rally to beat you when you are undefeated, and that's one of the things Michigan State's going to be facing this weekend against Western Kentucky. I mean, Tucker is on the players like he was last week. Avoid complacency. Stay fired up. You can say that, but it's just hard to achieve that. Meanwhile, you're playing Western Kentucky, who almost beat a Big Ten team last week. Now they're going on the road to play the number 17 team in the country, an undefeated team. Western Kentucky is going to be fired up to the gills, and that's a problem for Michigan State. As far as the matchups go, looking at Western Kentucky today, someone was talking about this on the chat board a little bit, wanted to know about Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky's defensive line, they don't get really good. They're not real quick with their takeoffs. They don't rush the passer well. If they're rushing 4, quarterback should have all day, just like Penix did. Thorne, if he gets his accuracy back together, should have all day against some open windows in a zone defense, which is not all that great. Now, it's not easy to run the ball against them. They'll do some bare fronts. They got some defensive tackles that are sturdy. They got an inside linebacker that's sturdy. But you should have all day to throw.
I mean, you can't really blame Peyton Thorne for half of those throws. Nebraska's blitzing 6 on 6. Someone's going to come free. Then what do? Walker chipping?
Well, they had Walker in on that 6 against 6 on that sack. Walker was in, picked up a linebacker for a moment, but then the linebacker eventually got through him. Nebraska did not have to blitz very often. I would
like to see Chase Klein move to fullback.
You would have liked to have seen him move to fullback if he were still around?
Yeah.
Well, Michigan State doesn't really use a fullback. I mean, he could do it, but he's pretty good. He's pretty good line.
He's down near the goal line. Remember that big run Trevor Pendleton had against Michigan 2013?
Yeah. On that throwback screen?
Yep, and the same thing in 2015 again.
Yeah.
That Ohio State score. Something like get down near the goal line, just to get a little extra power down there.
Well, Klein is what, about 230? That's a pretty good sized linebacker. I'm a fullback. He could have been a fullback like, who's that dude from Granville back in the very first game of D'Antonio? That's before your time.
I'm glad to have Josiah Price and Paul Lang back at tight ends.
What about him?
We could really use them again.
Yeah. Michigan State could have used one of those tight ends that Youngstown State had, and the tight ends that Nebraska had, including that 6'9" guy. It's part of what makes Nebraska pretty good. But anyway, hey Noah, I appreciate it. We're gonna run. You doing all right? Anything else?
Nope.
All right, Noah. Thanks for calling in. You have a good day at school tomorrow, Noah. There we go. That's Angelo Gross, Harold D. Joyner enthusiast. I think that's his name. He was the second guy chiming in today up here in the chat area. Rob South came in first. Rob South, and then Noah was second. Then Jonathan Green was in the house. I'm not familiar with Jonathan Green, but he's in the house. He's in third. Old Tuck, the bell cow. Old Tuck was tailgating on campus last Saturday, and he reached out to me and told me where you were. I don't want to out where you are, but Old Tuck was over at old horticulture building, which is a good place for Old Tuck to be. Where else would Old Tuck be?
To send a voicemail, press 2. To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail,
I
press
don't know
2.
what this is. Hey, you're on there. Who is this?
This is Patrick from Lansing.
Hey, Patrick. I wasn't sure. The phone didn't. I don't. It's a long story, but I wasn't sure you were calling the show or not. But you're welcome to SpartanMag Live. What's on your mind, Patrick?
Thanks, Comp. Hey, first thing I want to say, man, you are the best out there. Your coverage and what you guys do, it is the number one. It's the best.
Wow, thank you.
Thanks for all the work you put in, man. It's amazing.
I really appreciate that.
And you got it, brother. You got it. The thing that's on my mind is, and I don't know if you've talked about this already tonight, but I'm just thinking, was Saturday's performance, was that a sign of good things to come in terms of, this team has momentum and talent and capability, or was it a sign that, we're maybe going to start to slip a little bit and we'll see maybe some drop-off from the performance in the first 3 games?
Great question, and there are questions along those lines over the Underground Bunker message board. More specifically, Nebraska's defensive line. Is Michigan State going to see something like that again later this year? I've looked at Michigan. I mean, Smith and Hinton are okay at defensive tackle. Hinton's improved a little bit. He was a disappointment for a couple of years. They're okay, but they're not as good as these Nebraska guys. Ohio State has a lot of talent. I didn't specifically look at their defensive tackles, but the D-line, talented, but I'll have to wait and see once they've kind of have a new coordinator going on there. I have to take another look at them. But Indiana, no. Now, Iowa and Wisconsin have some sturdy defensive linemen, but Michigan State does not have to play them. Maryland, I've watched them, but I can't remember their D linemen necessarily. So, Penn State, I watched them against Auburn, somebody else, and they're talented and athletic and everything, but not quite two-gapping, rotund specimens like Nebraska has. So that part of it I don't think will be replicated. But can other teams find ways to handcuff Michigan State? Part of it was, I really believe, like Nils was talking about a minute ago, Peyton Thorne got knocked a couple of times. Bless his heart, stuck his nose in there, took some shots, trying to move the chains. And I think that affected his accuracy. There were some open receivers, like Peyton Thorne said after the game. There were some people that were open, people that were available, and he didn't quite connect point A to point B. So part of stopping Michigan State, you have to get to Peyton Thorne a little bit, whether it be pass rush or, knock him around a little bit. That goes for any quarterback in the country. When Michigan State played Miami, Manny Diaz said before the game, one of the things Michigan State makes them very good and it's difficult is they're a three-pronged attack. They got a very good running attack with Kenneth Walker. Quarterback's good enough, or pretty good play-action game, and also the quarterback is a threat to run on zone read keepers or scrambles. So as a defensive coordinator, it's a tough team to stop. Indy and Nebraska got it done, stopped the run, and they did it without having to use their safeties. You're asking if this is a sign of more problems to come. I'll say this: things were not easy in that Miami game, right? And things got a little tight for a moment against Northwestern, but no, games will not be as easy as they were against Northwestern and Youngstown. And that Miami game, Miami started fast. They got some momentum at the end of the third quarter. That game, Michigan State won going away on the scoreboard, but that game could have changed on a dime with one or two different plays. Specifically, their tight end Mallory, when he dropped that touchdown pass at the goal line. Remember, he dropped that one. If he catches that, Miami's up 14-3. Instead, he drops it, they miss a field goal, and it stays 7-3. Could Michigan State have come back and won that game? Maybe, but it would have been a lot harder. Just a couple plays here and there, and that game could have changed. So the Miami game was a great victory. It's comfortable on the scoreboard, but that game was tight and tough, and there's going to be more tight and tough games. And usually your tight and tough games, you're fortunate if you win half of your tight games, you're doing pretty well. You win 3/4 of your tight games, you're going to go 10-2. So Just by percentages, I got to believe Michigan State's going to lose a couple of close games coming up. If there's 4 close games left on their schedule and they win 2 of them, that's not bad either. But I'll get back to this. Nebraska, hey, we'll see. Nebraska I think is pretty good, and if Frost can keep them together and Martinez can keep doing his thing, they can beat Michigan. So.
Mm-hmm. And my thought is that, remember back in 2015, man, we had some close games that year, but you end up going to the playoffs. But if you go back to 2012, we had a ton of close games in 2012.
Yeah.
Excellent defense, end up 6-6, and it's like I feel like this team, we're probably somewhere in the middle. Where we get out of September 4-0, and maybe if I was a betting man, I'd probably say 8-4 at this point. But I don't know if that's a good over/under or not.
8-4. You probably saw on the Underground Bunker message board someone posed that question. Would you take 8-4 right now as a Michigan State fan, or would you let it ride? What do you think about that, Patrick? If someone gave you 8-4 right now, would you take it?
I think I would. And that might sound pessimistic, but think about that remaining schedule. I mean, I'd have to see it to believe it, to have us have a winning record in November with those games against Ohio State and Penn State. And I guess after what we saw Saturday, my expectations kind of came back to earth a little bit, where you realize that even though this team has an amazing running back and we've got a young quarterback who's very capable, that there were definitely some areas for improvement. So I would love it if we went 9-3 or 10-2, but realistically, I don't necessarily see it happening.
Who are the losses remaining on the schedule?
So Ohio State, Penn State, and honestly, I don't see us beating the Wolverines. I mean, and again, I know that's not a popular thing to say, but they're looking awfully good, and I think one of these other games, it could be at Rutgers, could be at Indiana,
oh, yeah.
It could do a hiccup against Maryland, and honestly, if we do no hiccups the whole year, think about that. If we won all the games that we quote unquote should win, now you're looking at 9-3, 10-2. And that would be quite an achievement.
But that's a tough one also. Which games remaining should they win? I mean, do you put Indiana down as a game you should win? I don't know. Indiana had all that hype in the preseason. They're not as good as they were supposed to be, but it's going to be at Indiana. That's going to be difficult. Maryland is better than anyone thought. Rutgers is better than anyone thought. All those teams have improved. Michigan State, Maryland, Indiana, Rutgers have all improved. And Michigan's improved for now. We'll have to wait and see what Michigan does when they get on the road.
Now, all that being said, I love what Coach Tucker is saying about, we could win every game on our schedule,
yeah,
and we could lose every game on our schedule, and that goes back to his whole philosophy is we want to keep guys level-headed, not get too high or too low. So I think they're approaching it the right way, and I hope it results in an amazing season. But I also think that, one of the things that could happen is either Kenneth Walker's tires, the tread on his tires could get a little thin.
Yes.
And, possibly as the year goes on, our running attack's not there. Or the other thing I could see is maybe he gets stronger. Maybe he's breaking tackles in November against Penn State, and Peyton Thorne gets a little older as the year goes on, and all of a sudden we're 10-2, which would be wonderful.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they beat Western Kentucky, they're 5-0. And I think there's going to be some struggling moments in that game, chasing around those guys with that air raid, chasing them around. And they're quick with it. I mean, it's air raid, they get it, and wherever you're leaving a little bit of a free release, that ball's coming out now. And they do it quickly, the Art Briles, Mike Leach type of thing, where they will throw the football, the quarterback will throw the football, whether he has his fingers on the laces or not, which is something that became into vogue with some of those air raid quick tempo teams 7, 8, 9 years ago. Get it and throw it without even adjusting. Just every second counts. They want it out into their hands of the playmakers and going. And that was an effective way to play offense against the old Narduzzi defense. Narduzzi would give you those underneath throws, give them to too deep and react. Not real deep, but the too deep up. Stop the run first and get inside the red zone, stop you, make kick field goals. On paper, you got to make sure you tackle in space, like when they played Texas Tech in the bowl game, lost that game when D'Antonio was just getting it going. Then Baylor in the famous Cotton Bowl, and then Washington State in the Holiday Bowl. It's not D'Antonio defense now. Now it's Hazelton, Scotty Hazelton with the 4-2-5. By the way, you watch Alabama, they're kind of a 4-2-5 these days. They played 5 DBs. They played 5 DBs against Florida. So the Hazelton way of doing things is built more suited for the air raid that they're about to see this weekend. So we'll have to wait and see what that means. Guys in the slot, Michael Dowell, and then when he's replaced by Darius Snow, those guys, that a lot of times that's the overhang defender. That's the guy that they're stressing a little bit. And they'll run tempo, and they'll use a lot of receivers. So depth at corner is important, and Michigan State's going to be down a corner without Kalen Girvin. Your thoughts on those guys entering the portal?
Yeah, I mean, who's your fifth defensive back this week?
Justin White was the guy that was the fourth corner or the fifth corner against Youngstown State, number 30, and he's played on special teams. He's a walk-on. He now becomes, along with Brantley, he's a second-string corner. I'm pretty sure that's the way it'll shake out. Mm-hmm. So that's it's not Kalen Girvin. I mean, White, if he gets in there, he played a little bit against Youngstown, but he's not Kalen Girvin.
I mean, I wish those two guys well. I really do. But at the same time, I just have a hard time believing that if you're already engrossed in the culture of the Spartan program, you've already gotten to know the coaches, you've already gotten to know the system, and now you're going to jump ship. It just doesn't seem like a wise decision on their part. I hope they land somewhere and they're successful. But that's tough to make a transition once they've already established themselves in the program, and there's a high likelihood that they would have achieved, greater playing time as the year goes on and guys get dinged up. But I hope it works out for them.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I mean, like I said earlier, I never want to try to judge someone, unless you walk in their shoes or whatever. But you train all year, for the ultimate team sport. And yeah, you lose your starting job. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you feel like you should have gotten more chances, whatever. But you put in all that time, and you're 4-0, and you got a chance to, keep going forward. I understand, like when Connor Hayward entered the portal because he wanted to preserve a year of eligibility. These two guys have already redshirted. Whether they leave now or leave after the end of the regular season, after Thanksgiving, it wouldn't make a difference. So I'm struggling to understand why they wouldn't want to stick it out and just remain with the team and just play out the string. Even if you leave before the bowl game, that's more understandable. I don't see what they gain by leaving now. Now, I don't know if there's anybody internally that's complaining. Maybe they're like good riddance. I don't know. They both seem to be pretty good people to me. I don't know. You don't know. We're not on the inside. I know Tucker, talked to his players are like, hey, are you with us? We're going forward. And if you don't like it, there's the portal type. That's the way he is, and he's not messing around. So, it just seems like the only by opting out now they preserve health. They can make sure that they'll be healthy when they enter the portal and tour other programs either later this fall or into the winter. Other than that, they're losing a chance to be at worst a second stringer on a 4-0 team that's got a chance to do some special things. But again, I'm not sure. I don't want to judge what they did. It just seems pretty bizarre and kind of unfortunate. If you're a Michigan State fan.
And I would say it's very fascinating. It's entertaining to be a Spartan fan because if going forward, Mel Tucker and his coaching staff is going to be heavy into the portal and, taking that kind of hard line where it's like, hey, if you're for us, stay. If you're not, there's the portal. Then every offseason and maybe even during the season, it is going to be entertaining on SpartanMag.com because we're going to be seeing all kinds of names, floating every year that the coaching staff is going to go after. So I'm wondering, like, let's say a year from now, how many guys are going to come in the portal for the Spartans next year? And it could be kind of this annual thing that's almost an additional recruiting class every year.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the portal. I doubt they're going to bring in 15 every year like they did last year. I think that was extravagant because they felt like they needed to. I think there'll be a handful. There'll be a handful every year. And when the portal happens, we'll be trying to cover it on SpartanMag.com, but it's a difficult thing to cover. It's more difficult than recruiting. Recruiting, who they're visiting, and the recruits put the information out on Twitter. These guys, when they're in the portal, they keep it quiet. It's not common. Players will say they're in the portal, but then they don't keep people up to speed. If a high school recruit gets a scholarship offer from Oklahoma State, they tweet it out. Hey, I'm blessed to get an offer from Oklahoma State. But 3 years later, if that guy's in the portal, he doesn't come out and say, hey, I'm blessed to get a phone call from LSU. I'm in the portal. It's quiet. And it's smart for both sides to keep quiet. The player doesn't want it out, and the programs don't want it. They just keep it. So it's hard to cover. You can kind of backtrack a little bit and try to figure out, okay, who recruited this guy out of high school that did not get him, but there's other people that keep an eye on those things also. So I don't know, but as far as Michigan State and the record and 8-4, would you take it? Would you not? All right, look at it this way. If Michigan State beats Western Kentucky, they're 5-0. All right, remaining on the schedule, I would divide it up into 3 different tiers. You got Purdue. It's at Purdue, but right now I'm thinking you should win that game. Now, it's Big Ten. It's hard to say anybody's a sure win. But if Michigan State goes down and plays their B game against Purdue, they should be able to win, I'm thinking. All right, if that's a win, that gives you 6. I think that's a win. That's a game you should win, okay? The other 2 categories, you got Maryland, Indiana, and Rutgers. That's one category. It's going to be difficult, right? And then you got Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. That's going to be difficult also, provided that Michigan continues to play well. I mean, Michigan could go off the cliff at any moment. That's just the way things are there. But for now, I'll put them in that upper tier with Ohio State, Penn State. I'm thinking if Michigan State continues to improve and stays healthy and tends to their knitting, as Keith Jackson would say, I'm thinking they can beat Purdue. And then in that tier for Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, let's say you win one of those games. All right? Win one of those 3. I think it's possible to win one of those 3. Right, as it stands right now. Things can change in a hurry. And then the other one, Maryland, Indiana, Rutgers, let's say you take 2 out of 3 from that group. That would take some doing, right? That's not easy. So if you have 5 wins after Western Kentucky, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's a 9-3 season. If you beat Purdue, take 2 out of 3 from the one group, 1 out of 3 from the other group, that's 9-3. I think that's possible. I wouldn't bet on it, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you make a great point about the Michigan game that if I was going to put money down on that right now, I mean, obviously I'm a Spartan fan, so I'm going to go with my guys. But you're right that could fall off a cliff. So maybe that game isn't quite as hard as we think it could be, although it'll be a dogfight. But the other thing is these middle-tier games, the Rutgers, Indiana, I'll be very interested, assuming we get by Western Kentucky, I'll be very interested to see how we play in those 2 away games. Because if we come with an A game in those 2 games, now you're 7-0 going to, coming back home to play the Wolverines. How exciting would that be?
The night before Thanksgiving, it'd be a crazy weekend in East Lansing. I mean, Michigan's got Wisconsin and at Wisconsin and Nebraska back to back, and they're putting a lot of chips on the table for this game at Wisconsin. And I didn't hear much from the press conference at Michigan. I'm hoping the Michigan people aren't calling this like a revenge game. Are they calling this a revenge game against Wisconsin? I'm hoping they don't, because that's usually Michigan's style to say, okay, we're on a revenge tour now. That goes back to the Bob Ufer days. You beat us last year, now it's revenge. Well, some of these teams have been beating Michigan with regularity like Wisconsin has, but there's no revenge about it. There shouldn't be, because Wisconsin absolutely destroyed Michigan last year. It's not like they were wronged. Wisconsin could have scored 75 points in that game if they wanted to. Michigan quit in that game. Their defense quit in that game. There's no revenge about it. Now, if you say you want to prove your manhood, you want to prove something to yourself and to other people, that's fine. But don't act like you're going to get revenge against Wisconsin, because they could have just absolutely destroyed you last year. They eased up. You owe them a debt of gratitude, Michigan, because Wisconsin could have just knocked you out of off the planet if they wanted to. There's no revenge about it. I've not heard if they've used that word. If they're not, then I give them credit for having some wisdom about that. The game at Nebraska is a night game. And like I said, if Nebraska can hold things together, playing at night, right now I would take Nebraska to win that game. Now, also, because Michigan is playing after the Wisconsin game, if they lose, what does that do to Michigan's psyche? Can he keep, he kind of lost that team last year. They quit against Wisconsin. He lost that team. I've been impressed that they've been able to gather it back up and start out this season as well as they did, because I thought it'd be really hard to regather them after they quit on him last year. So they got to do this against Wisconsin. Everybody knows Wisconsin's struggling with Graham Mertz. He's not good. He doesn't process things well. He has all the arm talent. That's why he was a 5-star recruit. And all the arm talent looks good in the T-shirt camps. But at the T-shirt camps, you cannot simulate reading a coverage, processing a coverage. And he struggles with that. And it was bad against Notre Dame. I was in a text thread with Konendijk and some of these guys, Matt Dorsey and some people during that game. I'm like, okay, the interceptions are coming. About ready to throw a couple interceptions, and then that's when interceptions came, because all of a sudden Wisconsin was forced to try to throw the ball down the field, because all of a sudden they were down 2 scores. They had to try to make something happen, and that's when he was it was up for grabs. So Mertz, he plays more like Ethel Mertz now. And will they change? Sorry about that. Will they change quarterbacks out of it? So Wisconsin's now the team they're improved their manhood mode right now, and they're tough and physical, still stopping the run. That's what they do really well. So Michigan's going to have to go to the air. So that's going to be like which team can get like a turnover or something and get a 10-point lead. A 10-point lead in that game is going to be like a 3-touchdown lead. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So Michigan's got a lot of chips on the table for that game. And then they may not realize it now, but the tough game is a week later in Lincoln. Doing it back-to-back road games, it's not like a 10-game road trip in the NBA or something, but it can be difficult. Wisconsin is not as good as everybody thought they were going to be, and Michigan's better than people thought. So we're going to learn a lot here in the next couple of weeks. October 9th is going to be amazing. A lot of good games.
Yeah, and here's interesting psychological, speculation. So if Michigan, let's say they're coming off a win against Wisconsin and a loss against Nebraska, how are they feeling going into that state game? Are they in now prove their manhood mode, and we've got to match that, Or let's say they say they're coming in having beaten Wisconsin and Nebraska. All right, now are we in a better position to knock them off? So it's an interesting psychological possibility.
Every game is like a season of itself. If they lose to Wisconsin and Nebraska, he'll be coaching for his job in East Lansing, I think. I know he's 4-0, and everyone's throwing a party right now, but that thing could turn. Hey, they've been playing pretty good. I give them credit. And, I've watched them, but I've not really studied them. I've not really taken a real close look. Last night, I went through the second half to see what Rutgers did effectively, and Michigan did kind of turtle there a little bit, and they kind of tightened up. But, when they get rolling with the run game, they do some good stuff. They got some good players. They got, McNamara's got to turn it loose at some point. We don't know what that looks like. College football, we learn as we go.
But I'll tell you this, Comp, if we take care of business, if we take care of our business against the Hilltoppers, and we take care of our business against Rutgers and Indiana, now you're playing with house money, and you got nothing to lose against the Wolverines. So,
well, I don't know. I think in some ways you could say that you've got more to lose. You've got that undefeated season, and then all of a sudden you become a little more defense mode. You become the hunted, and it's a different psychological construct. They'll try to keep everything the same no matter what the record of the opponent is. But when you're undefeated and teams start aiming for you, Indiana's going to have a chance to really rewrite their season if Michigan State's 5-0. Indiana has been a disappointment, blown out by Iowa, lost to Cincinnati when their middle linebacker was thrown out. Excellent player, sideline to sideline speed, good player. Indiana is trying to get back on track off the mat. They struggled with Western Kentucky. They will have a chance to right the ship, and they will see Michigan State as fresh meat to do that, because they did handle Michigan State easily last year. Then you get in a situation where you can get some overconfidence. I mean, Indiana's had some problems this year. They probably have no reason to be overconfident. But sometimes when you handle a team one year, 24-0 or whatever it was, like Indiana did against Michigan State, the next year, the team that won by the comfortable margin, sometimes they are prone to be too full of themselves the next year. I think the Michigan-Penn State series has been like that over the years. You win one year, you assume it'll be the same the next year, and the other team gets you. So there's a lot of things going on there with that Indiana thing for the old brass platoon, the border skirmish, as I like to call it, against Indiana.
How would you kind of diagnose Indiana? Like, do you think it's just a matter of, hey, they read their press clippings and they thought they'd be better than they are, or they lost some talent, or what do you think's going on there?
They lost Kane Womack, their defensive coordinator, became head coach at South Alabama. He's a young guy. Last year, that defense was amazing. They had good talent on that defense, but they played great football. That was one defense that was not about the Jimmies and Joes. It was about the X's and O's and how they were able to implement some of their things. They led the Big Ten in sacks last year without an NFL defensive lineman. You know what I mean? They led sacks with coverage sacks and just changing the hieroglyphics, changing the reads for the quarterback, making him hold on to it a beat longer, and then the pass rush gets home with different types of pressures that they had. The combination of, they had a lot of volume with different coverages and different pressures, and the combination of both, and they did it with a 4-2-5. And they were just, I never got a real good handle on what they were doing. I watched it. I was fascinated by it. And that Kane Womack, remember that name. I don't know how he's going to be as a head coach. But Indiana went out and got their new defensive coordinator. He's never been a coordinator, I don't think. He was defensive backs coach at Georgia. I think he might have been corner coach at Florida. But, Coombs has had problems at Ohio State. Like I said, it's usually in year 2 when the leaks start to show. And I think Indiana next year on defense good chance they'll be a far cry from what they were defensively in 2020. So that's the first thing, defense. Penix had problem against Iowa. Now, Iowa on defense, I talked about them in the preseason. I really like Iowa just as a program. I mean, they got things that drive people, that bother people a little bit here and there. But, hey, they've been clean over the years. They're still playing their style of football. They've updated it a little bit to go with the spread and the tempo and all that. But they're still 2-deep zone, quarters and halves. And then, they still keep 3 linebackers on the field. They play a little bit more man-to-man on third down than they used to. But they just hit hard, whether it's Phil Parker or the old days with Norm Parker. There's shades of the Perlis era in that team. And when they play zone defense at Iowa, they've got short closed windows. Those windows look like they're open, but they're not. That's why they lead the nation in interceptions every year or close to it. And they cycle up when they are experienced in the secondary because they play so well together and they close those windows. And when you catch it, they hit you hard and they stop the run because they don't two-gap as much as these two on the D-line, but they're sturdy. This year, Iowa returned everybody in the secondary and their middle linebacker. That told me right there that this team is going to have some closed windows and they're going to be smart and tough in the back 7. Just because Iowa is Iowa, that's the brand. Year after year, you know what you're going to get. And when they cycle up with that type of experience back there, they're going to be a problem. I was not surprised at all that Indiana threw 2 pick-sixes in the opening game against Iowa. Now, Petrus comes and goes as a quarterback a little bit. Goodson is pretty good. I've not really taken a close look at their defensive line yet. I don't know where they are. I know they've got that Van Vandenberg guy or whatever his name was from West Michigan that Michigan State looked at a little bit. He came back for a 6th year. He's pretty good, but I've not taken a close look at them. But I like what Iowa stands for. I give them they're fun, and it's amazing. I was talking about this on another show today. I heard this elsewhere. In the preseason AP top 25 in the preseason, 9 of the 25 teams already have 2 losses. 9 of the 25. You're talking like Washington, USC, Wisconsin, Iowa State. There's some others. Miami. There's 9 anyway. Clemson, right? And Wisconsin. I say Wisconsin. So 9 of the 25. We're not a month into the season yet. Only played 4 games, and all those teams have 2 losses. Meanwhile, in the Big Ten East, there's 4 unbeaten teams, right? Maryland's one of them. Maryland's not getting much talk, but and they're a team that's in the past has started fast and then they fizzle a little bit. I don't know if they'll fizzle anymore this year. I mean, Tagovailoa is interesting. They've got a receiver. I forget his name. I think he's number 7. Big, tall, 6'4" wide receiver. He's the real deal. And it's interesting that Dan Enos is the offensive coordinator there because he struggled so badly for the Miami Hurricanes. Now that he's at Maryland, it looks a little different. You know, he was together with Loxley, the head coach. They coached together at Alabama. That was his connection to get that job at Maryland. But what they're doing now is different than what they did at Miami. At Miami, they were a little bit more buttoned down, Morris Watts style, a little bit. But Enos has a chance to breathe some more oxygen into his career. Maryland as a program they've had some good moments, you know, through the years. I mean, I don't want to go back all the way to the 50s when they won the national title with Tatum and those guys. But I mean, they've been good with Esiason and in the 70s, they were, you know, they had some moments here and there. They're not a natural power, but when they've had things in the right direction, they've had, you know, Friedgen had some good moments there, but they're not, you know, that's a program that has, you know, some horsepower to it. They're not. You don't have to reinvent the sport to win there.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, do you think Loxley's the kind of guy that's a long-term fit there? Like he could really do something special?
I didn't think so initially, and I don't know if special's too big of a word. When he was hired, I would not have expected them to be 4-0 right now with a win over West Virginia. You know, I mean, he's been a good recruiter in the past. You know, but he went out to where was it, New Mexico State or someplace like that, and was just terrible. Just terrible.
Yeah.
He was a good hire at Maryland at the time because they were coming off that tragedy, and he has a lot of positive outreach in that community in the D.C. area. So that was a good guy to bring in to bridge from all that tragedy and all those hard feelings. I understood that he'd coached there before. He's from there, so he helped, you know, reset the footing. But they're better right now than I would have anticipated. I thought that he might have started quickly and done some things, and then it would just nosedive. That's what I expected, but it has not happened. Not yet, anyway.
Mm-hmm. And God bless Dan Enos, man. I mean, I don't know anything about the guy personally, but as a person, but what I do know is it's tough to coach at about, 6 or 7 different places now, and he keeps resurrecting himself. So, I mean, the guy's got some coaching talent.
And he was okay at Central Michigan. He left there. You know, he was following a tough act there at Central because Butch Jones had success there and Brian Kelly had success there. It was going to be hard to live up to that. Not that they're going to be hot seat all the time there, but he got into the Bahamas Bowl, did a couple things, and he left to become coordinator at Arkansas. And there at Arkansas, you know, I thought Bielema had a pretty good thing going there for a while. He had some big offensive linemen, his style of play, and he had Enos there. And they changed what they did. They started to try to go tempo spread. That's not Bielema, you know, at Arkansas. They got away from I thought, you know, who's better to coach the Hogs than Bielema, right? And he got away from what they were doing, and they fired him. He didn't have like a terrible time there. They, like Bielema says, you know, 8-4 wasn't good enough for them, so they fired him. So then they went and I can't remember who they hired after him, but it was a problem. Now they got this guy Pittman. He's off to a good start. He's surprising a lot of people. They really handled A&M, and they really handled the Longhorns too. So Arkansas right now is running pretty strong. So, you know, Bielema might have thought that the 2 or 3 coaches that succeeded him would not have done as well as he did, but Pittman's off to a good start there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens. But, Comp, I just appreciate all you do, man. And, hey, if anybody's out there listening and you're wondering, should I become a SpartanMag member or not, you should. Okay.
All right.
Just saying.
Patrick,
and
I appreciate
you didn't pay me to say that.
All right, Patrick. I really appreciate you saying that. I really do. I appreciate you taking time out on your Monday night to chime in and say those nice things and contribute to the program. Thanks a lot, Patrick. You take care, all right?
You got it. Thanks, Count.
All right, there's Patrick. Hey, Patrick, if you see me around town in the stadium, say hi. Great to talk to you. Let's get over here to the chat area. I think I only got into one question in the mailbag. So all those other questions, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that because I can't stay out here all night. You guys have work to do. You have to get to work tomorrow. Even those of you out on the West Coast, you got work tomorrow. You can take tomorrow off if you want to. Jonathan Green's in the house. Old Tuck, the bell cow, he's here. Now, Old Tuck, I was about to say this. Old Tuck was, he reached out to me about his tailgate on Saturday. And I was going to go over there. But I got sidetracked by some things. Next thing I knew, I'm looking at the watch, and I ran out of time. Old Tuck, I was going to be there. Old Tuck was an old horticulture building near it. The bell cow, Old Tuck, old horticulture. That's Triple Crown right there. Didn't make it. Appreciate the invite, though. Give us a thumbs up if you like the YouTube channel here, SpartanMag channel. If you like the show, appreciate that. Go over to SpartanMag.com. Check it out. Month free right now. It's been that way for a long time. Check it out. You'll like it. It's a good time to get in there right now as we over at this Underground Bunker message board talk about Michigan State football all the time. We break it down, try to get to the bottom of everything. Mr. Bowman says, hello. Long time no see, go green. Mr. Bowman wanted to see a Spartan Mag live last week and the week before. We took 2 weeks off. Last week didn't do it. Monday night, I posted about this on the bunker. It's a long story. Lions were playing, and if the Lions are playing, our viewership is down a little bit. It's a Monday night. You know, I don't get a chance to watch the Lions with my son a whole lot because on Sundays we're usually playing where it's usually hockey or baseball at 1 o'clock. So Lions are, I'm like, yeah, me and my kid will watch some Lions. Yeah, just like I used to watch with my dad, So and we watch the Lions when we can. Usually we don't have time to watch the Lions until, I don't know, Christmas or Thanksgiving. Because whether it be baseball or hockey, Sundays he's occupied. Mondays he's not occupied. So I'm like, I'm not going to do Spartan Mag Live. I'm not going to do Spartan Mag Live. We're going to watch the Lions. Just me and him. He's a junior in high school now. Don't have much more time with him, right? So I tell him, hey, man, Lions are coming on. Dude's got homework. He's got to study for chemistry test. So I watch the Lions by myself. Could have had Spartan Mag Live last week. Didn't do it. Foul on me. I apologize. I love swim, says Go White. Troy Thibodeau says, felt that Beasley was in, we win in regulation. Felt that if Beasley was in, we win in regulation. Interesting. And Beasley was the guy I said in the pre-snap read was going to have a big day against Nebraska because Nebraska at left tackle really struggled in pass protection against Oklahoma. I didn't necessarily anticipate Panisha doing all that damage from the right side. Panisha played well. And I've always known he's had that in him. Last year he was slowed by COVID. This year at the beginning of the year he was just kind of okay. Started to come around a little bit more the last couple of games. And then this one he exploded and they needed it. Interesting point there from Thibodeau though. Make the best of what's still around, says Bryce Wild Thing. Behringer was the best player on the field. Well, he was responsible for 353 yards. 6 punts, 353. I mean, it's like a rugby type of thing when you're just moving the field, running. I'm not saying he was rugby punting, but so you watch rugby here and there. There'll be teams that punt on first down. They don't have downs, but they get it. They punt it right back. This guy was just moving the field position. Behringer was a weapon. You call him Wild Thing because of the glasses, like Sheen in the movie, right? I got you. Ryan S. says, go green. Rob South says, how is Behringer not getting any love after last weekend? Now, Behringer was not Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week because Jaden Reed got it. I don't know what else went on in the Big Ten. I understand why Reed got it with a punt return. But Behringer, tremendous. Gene Ridenour says, have been looking forward to this. Thanks, Gene. Appreciate that. Aaron May says, hello, Comp. Hello, Aaron. Good to hear from you. I think he's from out on the West Coast. I've spoken with him before, I think. He's from the West Coast? Yeah. Caleb Walburn says, any idea if we will see Gravely or Ricky White this season? I've been hearing some stuff about Ricky White. Been hearing some stuff about him. I haven't heard anything about Gravely. I'm going to say better chance Ricky White. I've not heard anything about Ricky White in like a week and a half. But a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, there was some chatter there that sounded positive. Mr. Bowman says, how was the atmosphere? It looked great on TV. Well, these other people here that are chiming in, they would know better than I was because I was in the press box, which is way up at the top, and it's a soundproof booth up there. So I really have trouble gaining a feel for what it's like in the stadium when I'm up there in that thing, unfortunately. Once again, thanks to Nick Harrington for putting bread in my jar. Appreciate that. Doug Sealy says, go green, big win last Saturday. Looking forward to this upcoming game. It's going to be a competitive game. Western's going to come in. They're going to throw it around. You got to chase them around. It's air raid. They do it well. And that quarterback, what's his name, Zippy or something like that, transferred in from Houston Baptist. He came in with the offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator was at Houston Baptist. He brought his quarterback with him, first-year offensive coordinator. Bailey Zappi is his name. Bailey is his first name. His last name is Zappi. And Tom Allen, the head coach at Indiana, in the post-game press conference said, quote, very, very talented quarterback who knows their system inside and out, and he put a lot of stress on us, unquote. Yes, he did. The quarterback, Zappi, against the Hoosiers, 31 out of 44 for 365. The dude threw for 365 yards against Indiana. Indiana threw for 363. Michael Penix, 34 out of 53, all day to throw. At least he did in the first half. I've not watched the second half yet. Indiana went for 499 in total offense. Western Kentucky 458. Rushing yards, Indiana 136. Western Kentucky, Indiana ran some against them. That's what I got to watch a little bit more. How will they be able to hold up against the run with Kenneth Walker? In the first quarter and a half, they have some defensive tackles that are relatively firm. They've got an inside linebacker that's firm that'll come up and take on an offensive lineman with a lot of. He's a linebacker that'll two gap. He'll come up on the line of scrimmage sometimes to give him a bear look. He's strong, but as strong as he is an inside linebacker, sideline to sideline, not terribly quick. Cornerback, one of them was 5'10". I got to watch him a little bit more. It's Western Kentucky. They do some good things, but when you're a mid-major, you will see players on the field that have a defect of some sort. That inside linebacker's tough, but sideline to sideline, not so quick. Corner, a little bit small. Pass rush, not a lot there. But the quarterback, you better not give them any extra possessions. You better not fumble a punt. You better not have a sack fumble. You give them extra possessions, you have a problem. Against Indiana, neither team had a turnover, and it basically became a shootout. Indiana only punted twice. Western Kentucky only punted 3 times. Western Kentucky will go fast, and it's air raid. The flea flicker, Indiana tried a flea flicker on the opening drive. It wasn't a running back flea flicker. It was a reverse. I think it was a double reverse back to the quarterback, and they didn't bite. They're looking long, and Western Kentucky covered it, so they threw underneath for about 20. Offensive coordinator for Western Kentucky is a guy by the name of Zach Kitley, 31 years old. He was came from Houston Baptist, was offensive coordinator at Houston Baptist. Prior to that, he was an assistant coach at Texas Tech. I think he was quarterback's coach when Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback at Texas Tech. Patrick Mahomes says good things about him. Zach Kitley did not play college football. He's 31 years old. He went to Abilene Christian as a basketball player and then transferred back to Texas Tech, where his father is the track coach at Texas Tech. Got in with the football program and is an X's and O's guy. X's and O's. I mean, Mike Leach didn't play college football. I don't think Hal Mummy did either. Those air raid guys, football optional in terms of playing. Last year for Houston Baptist, this guy, Kitley, the offensive coordinator, with this quarterback, I forget his name already, Bailey Zappi. They were together at Houston Baptist last year. They both went to Western Kentucky this year. Last year at Houston Baptist, they played Texas Tech. Houston Baptist lost 35-33. And Zappi against Texas Tech was 30 of 49 for 567. He threw for 567 yards against Texas Tech last year. Texas Tech invented this offense. Now, the coach who's there now is not in the Mike Leach tree, I don't think. They had Kingsbury and got rid of him, and he gets a head coaching job in the NFL. Strange league. But Houston Baptist entered that game as a 40-point underdog against Texas Tech last year. 567 yards. They were the most yards ever by an FCS team against an FBS team. The most yards ever by an FCS team against an FBS team. This was the quarterback. This was the coordinator. Now they're at Western Kentucky. And last weekend against Indiana, the dude threw for 365. Now, Western Kentucky, you've seen the scores. They destroyed somebody, and then they lost to Army. They beat Tennessee Martin 59-21. They lost to Army 35-28. That must have been crazy. I would like to have seen that game because you've got two polar opposites in terms of offensive philosophies and approaches. You got Army with the wishbone. They'd never throw. And you've got Western Kentucky with the air raid up-tempo. Obviously, those two teams had trouble stopping one another. Army won out 35-28. Army's a very good team. Western Kentucky went toe-to-toe with them. They went toe-to-toe with Indiana. I hear Michigan State's a 10-point favorite or something like that. I don't know. I still have more to watch, but I think this is going to be a struggle. Not only is Western Kentucky good at this, but it's interesting because Michigan State's defense is built for teams like this, theoretically. We've not seen it in practice, but that's the theory. That's why they're a 4-2-5 team. They should be more, in theory, Michigan State's, what they do on defense should be more applicable to what they do than against, like, Wisconsin. Although, in time, Michigan State expects to be equally good on defense against anything. Not there yet, but we'll see what they look like against this air raid system. So the head coach there is Tyson Helton. He's in his third year. They've been to 2 bowl games. Last year they were sub 500, went to a bowl game. Year before that, in 2019, at Western Kentucky, they went 9-4. They went to the First Responder Bowl in Dallas. They beat Western Michigan 23-20. That year, they also beat Army, and they beat Arkansas. So in 2019, with the air raid, they beat Army. Yes, and they beat Arkansas. Western Kentucky did. That was in his first year. He was Conference USA Coach of the Year. Now, that year, they lost to Louisville. They also lost to Marshall and Florida Atlantic. And they also lost to Central Arkansas in his first game as the head coach. So Western Kentucky, not the greatest team in the world, but a good mid-major. And they're going to be looking to put a stamp on their program at Michigan State against the number 17 team in the country, an undefeated team. They will be jacked to the moon. And Michigan State better not bring their C-plus game. That's all I got to say. I've got more to watch. And I'll have the final breakdown on that for the pre-snap read later in the week, like we always do. I need to circle back and get back to the mailbag. A lot of Michigan State fans, SpartanMaggers over at SpartanMag.com, posted a lot of questions, and we're 2 hours into this thing. We've not gotten to any of them. Got to one of them. We got into that long answer, that essay answer about what went wrong with Michigan State's offense in the second half. Went through every play in the second half. They only had 15 plays in regulation. Kenneth Walker only had 3 or 4 carries. So when you have that few plays, it's not hard to get to the bottom line on some of those things. 2 of the main runs that were stopped in key situations, they went from 2-gapping to 1-gapping, and it fools the offensive lineman. I asked Matt Allen about that last week, about how difficult it is when you go against a 2-gapping team when they change it up and they 1-gap on you. And he says, it's difficult. Let me find the questions here. Here they are. Went over to the Underground Bunker message board to find these questions. Here we go. Go back up to the top. We appreciate all the people tuning in and watching this week. Go to SpartanMag.com, become a subscriber. All right, Griff from Hill Valley, California says, on the heels of the Girvin and Klein news hitting the transfer portal, do you anticipate more transfers? Yeah, I think all over the country you're going to see teams, anybody that's on the third string, there's going to be a propensity, there's going to be a temptation to hit the transfer portal. So, yeah, I would expect it. I would not expect anybody who was like a former starter like Girvin. I mean, you wonder about people that have been demoted. I mean, if Noah Harvey sticks around, you got to give him a tip of the hat because he's gone from starting every game last year to basically being third string this year. Cal Halliday jumped ahead of him, and now Ben Van Summer's ahead of him as a second middle linebacker. So if Harvey sticks around, got to give him credit, and they need him to stick around because you start losing linebackers, you start losing depth. You don't want to be in that situation either. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if there's going to be any big names, but it's most likely it's going to be players like Alex Okello, who's around for a year and a half, defensive end. He was a part of last year's class. He was around he just got here, right? So yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen everywhere. Transfer portal. Big Don says, fantastic content in all forums you are part of, especially here. Thanks to you and Paul and all the contributors for such a great reporting and opinion. Thanks, Don. He says, although it seems glaringly obvious after the game, talk about the huge boost a robust kick return game brings. Something we've not had since Keyshawn Martin. Also talk about what a weapon Behringer's become. He was a huge reason that he was able to hang in while being on the field the whole second half. He says he's sipping on some Old Forester 1920. or he will be. He's doing that right now. It's 11 o'clock, though, Don. You got to get to bed pretty soon. He says, given the sweetness of stealing that W, I thought I would break out the good stuff. The good stuff, Old Forester 1920. Good for you, Don. And he says, shout out to Rob Zimmerman's DeWitt Panthers, too, he says. Absolutely. All right. I coach one of those DeWitt Panther kids in baseball season. Good kid. Plays football for DeWitt. All right. Behringer, we already talked about him. The return game. You know, the return game, remember when Ronnie Bell was hurt earlier in the year for Michigan? There was a big question, why do you have your best player on the return game? And there was a lot of questions back and forth. You saw Jaden Reed do it this weekend. That's a good reason to have him back there, he or Naylor. Jaden Reed with a 40-yarder. That was a big one, set up the field goal drive, short field for a field goal drive. And yeah, you know, the last couple of years of the D'Antonio era, when you started being able to fair catch a kickoff, Michigan State started fair catching a lot of kickoffs. Kind of became passive in that area. Punt return, Michigan State's never really set up punt returns in the D'Antonio era. They wanted to make sure they got the ball back, which meant they didn't want to rough the punter. They wanted to field it and secure it. So, and they did not set up for returns either because they didn't want to give up a fake. If you set up for a return and peel back too many people too early, you're susceptible to a fake. So in the entire D'Antonio era, I don't think anyone ever faked a punt against Michigan State because they protected against it. But Michigan State never had much in terms of return game. Explosiveness. Just the way they did it. They won a lot of games, did some great things, won some championships. It's different now. Ross L's a special teams coach. Last year, they really struggled in the punt game, specifically punt coverage. 2 punt returns for touchdowns last year. Really affected them against Penn State and I think Indiana. So this year, Ross L's had the entire cycle to get his team ready, and special teams are better, and special teams carried them in this game. So credit to them. Ross L's, you know, Michigan State previously with D'Antonio had that theory and that philosophy that I just explained about the punt game. With L's, they don't really have a standard approach to special teams every single week. He said last year, and I'm sure he continues to say this, we've not talked to him lately though, that they will have a different approach depending on the opponent and where they feel they might be able to attack that opponent. So this ploy they had against Nebraska, where one guy acts like he's fake catching the punt and the other guy actually returns it, you never know if that's going to work. You never know if the opponent's going to fall for it. 90% of the time they won't. Maybe you need him to accidentally shank it for it to work. I don't know. But they had it in. I doubt they had that in for every single opponent all year. They had it in for this game. They thought it could work. Like I think Jaden Reed said, based on the way Nebraska punts, when they have a 2-man added to the shield, that's usually the direction that they punt. So they'd scouted it enough to think it was going to go that way, but it shanked it this way. There was some preparation behind that. There was a method to that madness compared to the kick 6 thing that Alabama did, or Auburn did against Alabama. So credit to them. Sea Rock City sent from Atlanta by way of Port Sanilac, Michigan, on the shores of Lake Huron, ranked number 1 in the latest Great Lakes Power Ratings. Those of you that are new to the program may not know it, but I keep personal rankings of the top 5 Great Lakes on planet Earth. And we've had the rankings for almost 2 years. And number 1 for 2 straight years, and number 1 again for another week. Lake Huron, number 1 in the Great Lakes Power Rankings. Number 2 is Lake Michigan. Number 5 is Lake Ontario. And number 3 is, I'm going to go Lake Superior this week. Lake 4, I had Lake Erie up there 1 because I had a couple of good weekends this summer on the northern shore of Lake Erie in Ontario. Discovered a few things. The walleye fishing is good this year. So moved them ahead of Lake Superior briefly, but you can't get your Gumi down. You can't keep them down. So we'll see what happens with the ratings going forward. But for over 100 straight weeks now, Lake Huron's still number 1. Anyway, Sea Rock City, originally for Port Sanilac, says, interested in your read on the corners. Now, after 4 games, they seem to be playing much faster and less inclined to make big mistakes. What have you seen on film? Well, Ronald Williams made a big play on third down to get Michigan State off the field on the last play of regulation. On Nebraska's last play of regulation. It was 3rd and 6. He was in the slot, covered him. I think he made a tackle on that one. I don't know if it's a pass breakup or a tackle. My notes don't say, but it was 3rd and 6. Ronald Williams made the play on that one. Ronald Williams is better. We talked about that earlier in the show. Struggled a little bit in the Northwestern game, but that was his first game ever, really. We talked about that. Didn't play much against Alabama. Still new to the position, new to college football. So his slope of improvement, it's not a big surprise that it's a steep one because he's got a lot of talent. He's got some range, tackling better. Got beat deep once against Northwestern. Went for an offhand jam. And just kind of didn't get to him on that and got tangled up in his feet, got beat deep once. Did not start the next week, but he's been playing better. Girvin made that mistake. We talked about it earlier. Missed 2 tackles against Miami, and then that touchdown run they got out for Youngstown State, 29-yard touchdown run by the running back. He came in too thin on it and allowed it to bounce outside. He's supposed to outside in that thing. That's probably one of the reasons he didn't start the next week against Miami. And I'm not sure what happened, why he didn't play this weekend, but things must have already kind of hit the fan there. So Chester Kimbrough started against Miami and started again, and his slope of improvement looks pretty good. I heard good things about him during preseason camp. Did not see him in the first game much. Been seeing him more lately, and of course he makes the big heroic interception in the overtime. On that one, Michigan State was in quarters, similar to the old D'Antonio Barnett quarters coverage. It was not press quarters. He was off. It's 3rd down, and it's quarters, and he's inside technique. I was talking to Ron Armstrong, Big Movie, about this, and he said the way he was moving in, he feels that Chester Kimbrough knew the double slants were coming. Or I don't know if it's double slants or just single slant, but I'm just trying to think, going by memory. But his was a slant. I think it was double slants. Based on formation or situation or whatever, Big Movie thought that Kimbrough, through film study, knew that slant was coming. So he took another half step in for inside technique, and he's coming inside, and he plays him. You saw it, played it perfectly, and then eyes to the ball, breaks on it for an interception. I think there was a lot of film study there, and a veteran play by Kimbrough. And it would have been appropriate if he would have taken it all the way for a touchdown. If he would have ended it with a touchdown. Because then Michigan State's offense would have never come on the field in overtime. Michigan State would have won the game seriously with 0 contribution from the offense after halftime. That would have been appropriate. But it's better for the team that Michigan State's offense took the field. Kenneth Walker had a nice 23-yard run on the counter. I mentioned in the .comp that it was the first time they ran it all night, but going back over the film, they ran that counter, guard tackle pull, kind of a counter sweep, if you will. They ran that counter like the 3rd play of the game, but I didn't have that in my notes, so that was wrong. I hate when I get crap wrong. Anyway, so that's the second time they ran it that night. It wasn't the first time. But it's better for Michigan State that Kenneth Walker had that big run at the end. Might have been better for everybody if he'd have scored. Maybe not. You let Cogs go in there, Coughlin get in there and get the game winner, feel good about it. So, corners, Brantley, for a little dude, he can hit. He's tackling well, he's got good feet. So those are your corners now, Kimbrough, Williams, and Brantley. 2 transfers and a true freshman. I'm guessing Justin White's the other second-string corner now because he was the number 5 corner before. So cornerback play was good, but without Girvin, the ice is a little more thin. Solo Beer Guy, Sola from Westland, Michigan. He says, do you think this defense continues with its bend but don't break strategy this season? Or maybe coaches are waiting for guys to develop more before they play more press man-to-man? The bend but don't break is something they did against Miami out of respect for the speed of the receivers, including Rambo. Plus, Michigan State wanted to keep an eye on the mobile quarterback. The mobile quarterback, De'Aaron King. So if you're playing zone, it's easier to keep an eye on the quarterback than if you're playing man and you turn your back to the backfield and you take off running. So they're going to play more zone. And if you play zone, usually it's going to be off coverage. I mean, these teams these days, they might press and then bail back into cover 3. the old D'Antonio way, they would do a lot of man match, press quarters. They would play press and quarters. Now that was good, but it ends up being like man to man. So someone like Rambo could, if you're worried about him deep, could still turn it into a man-to-man situation if you're worried about getting beat deep over that way. Also, if you're in press quarters, one of the weaknesses was the wheel route. We saw that countless times. So Michigan State played bend but don't break, soft on the sidelines against Miami because of that opponent, and they wanted to make D'Eriq King throw from the pocket and not chase him into a play and not turn their back on the backfield. So that was specifically for that opponent. Martinez, not dissimilar. I think there were some D'Eriq King rules in effect. Michigan State put some man in also. But no, I don't think they're always going to be bend but don't break. This is not always going to be Perla style, big cushion and hit. But Michigan State has been hitting real well lately. Against Western Kentucky in the air raid, it'll be a mixture. I mean, if you play man-to-man against them, that can be problematic. You saw what happened when LSU last year with against Mississippi State. Different teams, but it's air raid against man-to-man all night. What's the dude's name that used to coach at Nebraska and coached at Youngstown State? Was it he was coordinator? Italian guy. I can't think of his name. Anyway, that dude got fired after that. He had no idea how to play defense because of the air raid. You have to be able to do more than one thing. So this won't be the game you play press man-to-man either. You might see more of it against Indiana. Rutgers, with the way they do zone read option, power read option. Against Michigan, they gave them trouble with power read option. It's not zone read option. Some of it's zone, but some of it they're pulling the backside guard, and it's power. It's power read option. They're optioning a guy on the front side and also running power with it. It's power read option. Vedral, the quarterback for Rutgers, real good with the read and the keepers. They got stopped on a fourth down where they brought in their second-string quarterback, and it wasn't Vedral. And that was a mistake. Oops. But, man, they started going with that thing, and they've got those RPOs sewn in. Rutgers does. So your overhang defender, they're reading that guy, and they got the power read going, and they'll shoot it out. They got a pretty good outfit going with that thing. So would press man make sense against that? I don't know. We'll learn as we go, as we watch this team. But to answer your question, no, they are not going to be married to bend but don't break, soft zone forever and always. That was just for that opponent. Jim Spefton, no, this guy's name is Spefton, from East Lansing. He says, Jim, thanks for doing this. He says, I know Naylor has great speed and made some big plays against Miami, but he was an absentee against Nebraska. Does he struggle with running routes? You would expect him to make a few plays like Trey Mosley did. What gives? He says, do we have any other potential playmakers at wide receiver who can step in? I know White can make plays once he returns to the fold. Montori Foster's a guy that's got a chance. I think Ian Stewart's pretty good. But going back to last year, this coaching staff, they've only played 4 wide receivers. They don't go deeper into the rotation than that for some reason. That's the way they want to do it. That's fine. Jalen Naylor was targeted 3 times. 3 times he was open, 3 times Thorne threw behind him. So he was absentee, but through no fault of his own. That's the name of that tune. Spartans Nation is his name. He's from Walla Walla, Michigan. There is no Walla Walla, Michigan, is there? There's Walled Lake. Walla Walla Lake. Walled Lake. It's just south of M59. I don't know where that is. Leave me alone. So anyway, Spartan Nation says, Jim, great stuff as always. He says, we seem to get away from a lot of the misdirection counter plays on offense that were successful against Miami. Any clue why we didn't go there against Nebraska? Well, Miami is a one-gapping team. They are attack. They get into the gaps, and they chase with speed. So you can use that speed against them, is what they do. They would show one thing, show some cheese, get them to bite, and come back quick. Very interesting that against Miami, Michigan State completed, I think it was 13. 13 passes behind the line of scrimmage. Fake this way, come back behind the line of scrimmage. Even that one that went to Trey Mosley was a little bubble that was thrown behind the line of scrimmage, got out for about 50 yards. So Nebraska's 2-gap, read and react. It's hard to get misdirection to work against 2-gap, read, react, square defense. 2 different styles. So Michigan State, 2 different modes of operation. Guy's name is PPTPW, which means players play, tough players win. It's an old Izzo axiom. He's from St. Joe, Michigan. He says, Jim, what is going on with the scoreboards at Spartan Stadium? The down and distance was wrong virtually every play. for the second game in a row. Did you guys notice this in the press box? I did notice it because I'll look over there as I'm taking my notes, and a lot of times, my vision's not so good, and I'm a long way away, and sometimes I have trouble trying to find where on the scoreboard the down and distance is. I got to find it right now and write it down, and I was looking for it and couldn't find it. A lot of times I'd have to end up like I did back when I used to cover high schools, and I'd cover games from the sideline way back in the early 90s, and I would just look at the sticks, and the dude, with the orange sticks, if he goes halfway, that means second down and 5. If he goes a little more than halfway, it's second down and 4 or 3. I'm just looking at the orange sticks. So I ended up having to do that quite a bit. You might want to try that when you're at the stadium. I have no idea what the problem is with that. A lot of people have been complaining about it. I have no idea. He says also, did Naylor actually signal for a fair catch on the punt return or just pretend like he was going to catch it? Is it legal to fake a fair catch signal? Great point. I watched it. I have bad eyes. I thought I saw him do this, but you're right. I don't think you can do that and have someone else catch it. So he was just doing this. Other teams have done it. They'll fake a fair catch. Like if a team is trying to pin you inside the 10-yard line, dude might run over here at the 12 and act like he's going to catch it, do a fair catch, when in actuality the punt's way over there, and he just hopes it rolls into the end zone. He's trying to take people away from taking it into the end zone. That's with one guy deep. With double safeties deep, they call them safeties, even though they're punt returners. It's old school terminology. No, you can't do this over here and have him return it. So you're right. I'm wrong, and I wrote that wrong in the .comp article last week. It wasn't .comp, actually. It was the 321. I need to go back and take that out. You're right. I need to have you as an editor. Fish and Dave from Midland says, is the offensive line that bad or Nebraska just that much better and what is the fraction of teams and what fraction of teams are as good on the defensive line? We talked about this earlier in the show. Wisconsin is that good on the D-line, and so is Iowa. I think I got to take a closer look at Iowa. Ohio State could be. That one dude, what's the guy's name? The big All-America guy, number 92. I think it's 92. Anyway, against who'd they lose to? Oregon? Let me see here. He wasn't all that great. But Ohio State has talent, right? Everybody knows that. I just tried to call up my Ohio State-Oregon notes, but I can't find them real quick. Anyway, Ohio State, they have problems with their organization, their coordination on defense. By the time they play Ohio State, I'd expect that D-line to be pretty good, but I'm trying to think. I don't know. Anyway, D-line, Michigan's not as good on the D-line defensive tackles as Nebraska. I mean, Hutchinson's an outside guy, stand up now. They've improved there, but like I said, Smith and Hinton aren't as good as these guys. I've not looked at Purdue closely, but I doubt they'll be in that category. I watched Rutgers. I didn't notice anything great defensive line. I'll have to wait and see. But no, I wouldn't expect to face defensive tackles that are quite that good. Not only were they good, but they also changed up and went one gapping right with perfect timing to give big plays to get off the field. He says, is the offensive line that bad? Offensive line, our Curry struggled early in the game, and I went over those stoppages in the second half, what went wrong in the one gapping. Early in the game, the early drives, the run game, first play of the game, Kenneth Walker stopped for a loss of 2. Our Curry did not get out to the linebacker level. It's a combo block. He has to be a part of controlling the defensive tackle, and once he's controlled, then our Curry on that particular play can get out to the linebacker. But if that defensive tackle is never quite controlled, you can't get out to the linebacker. So I'm not saying he should have gotten out to the linebacker. I'm saying the defensive tackle is that good, he didn't get controlled, so linebackers were running free on that one. 1st and 10, they ran a zone. Walker, gain of 2. Linebackers just scraped really quickly. They ran that one at number 2, the defensive end number 2, who I said was their weak defensive end. They had some success running against him a couple times. Second drive, they got stopped on 4th down. Remember that zone read when Peyton Thorne kept it? 13 jumped up, did a great job defending that zone read, like they knew it was coming. Usually defensive ends that are unblocked stay tight to the lineman, stay on the line of scrimmage, and defend it from there. This dude, number 13, their slot linebacker, charges forward like a 2-step blitz, gets into the backfield, then breaks down and plays it. I'm sure other people do it that way, but I've never noticed other people doing it that way. So if you're watching Peyton Thorne he had no chance. That dude played it so perfectly. And he blitzes and stops, so he's unblocked. It's like a run blitz stop, and then his shoulders are square to the mesh. He's not down toward the running back or to the quarterback. He's in a perfect place to read it. Walker was upset. Walker thought he should have gotten the ball. It would have been tight. I think Walker would have gained a yard or two. I think he would have picked it up. And I think Thorne was mad at himself for not handing it to him. So that's a guy that was unblocked. It's almost like they knew the play was coming. And I've not seen it. I don't think I've seen it played that way by an unblocked guy. A lot of times the unblocked guy just goes at the mesh just as hard as he can. And if the quarterback pulls it out, he's left out to dry. Or he crashes at the quarterback and they hand it off. Or he crashes in toward the running back and the guy takes off. Instead, he goes 1-2 and stops. Football's a copycat game. I think everybody's going to start doing that because it looked pretty good on that particular play. Earlier on that drive, second drive of the game. 1st and 10, gain of 2. Our Curry pulled, did not finish the block on the linebacker. That time it got out of the linebacker, did not. He got into him. Number 28, the inside linebacker is pretty good. Did not finish the block. That was the counter. That was when they pulled the guard and the tackle to the strong side, and it looked like it was going to work for a minute. That's the play they ran in overtime. And Kenneth Walker got down to the 2-yard line. So they did run it one other time in that game. 2nd and 7, inside zone, gained 3. Our Curry again unable to get off the combo to get out to the linebacker. Number 93, the defensive tackle, occupied our Curry and Jarvis, and they got no movement on him. So it was Jarvis and our Curry double teaming the dude, number 93, and he didn't budge. I mean, the main thing for defensive tackle, one of the main things is when you get double teamed, do you get driven off the line of scrimmage, or can you hold firm, or can you even get sideways if you're a one-gap team and tripod it a little bit and even penetrate it. 93, they didn't get any movement on him. So if you get no movement on him, you can't leave him alone to get out to the linebacker. So our Curry didn't. It's not just our Curry's fault. It's the double team of our Curry and Jarvis. Not enough movement. So 2nd and 7. They gained 3, though, on that one. All right. That same drive, 1st and 10, number 99 was a defensive tackle. He withstands and gets off the Matt Allen and Duplain double team. So Matt Allen, Duplain double team. He gets off. Walker gets bounced. Tyler Hunt has a difficult angle to get out to the middle linebacker, 42, and doesn't quite get him cut off. Hunt was in the slot as 3 receiver side and couldn't quite get to him. So at this point in the game, this is the 2nd drive. And Michigan State's in a passing formation, 3 receivers trying to run out of a pass formation. And that play lost 2 yards. That's just guys beating blocks. 99 beat the double team of Allen and Duplain, and the linebacker 42 beat the block of Hunt, even though Hunt did not have a good angle to do it. And Nebraska was in a 2 deep for that play. And the safeties didn't even get involved, didn't need to get involved. They got a tackle for loss without the safeties involved, just guys beating blocks. Now it's 2nd and 12, outside zone. They gained 5 on that one. Our Curry was better this time. He got movement on number 2, their weak defensive end. Got movement on him and was able to combo out to the play side linebacker. Outside zone, gains 5 yards. Now it's 2nd and 5. They go inside zone, no gain. Again, 2-by-2, passing formation. They tried to run out of passing formation, Michigan State. It's 5 versus 5 in the box. Allen and Jarvis double team on 97, got nothing. So Allen and Jarvis, nothing on the double team. If your double teams are not getting movement, it's like you're playing with 10 on the field. Duplain got stood up by 99. 99 2-gap, got off Duplain, made a tackle, no gain. Now it's 3rd and 5. Ran speed option to the field, pitched it, gained 4. Our Curry did a good job against the play side linebacker. And Jarvis and Duplain were just not quite fast enough to get out to number 28, the linebacker, to cut him off. 28 made a good react quick enough, and the offensive lineman couldn't get him cut off. So that's Reimer, number 28. He was better than I thought he was. So that created the 4th and 1. Read option got stopped. That's the first 2 drives. I could do this all night. They had 3 more drives in the first half. So I just looked at the running plays that didn't work. Earlier, they were having trouble. Later on, let's get down here. There were some other ones where things worked out a little better. 3rd drive punted. Simmons is in at running back now. Inside zone. Again, 1-by-3 passing formation. Tried to run inside zone. Matt Allen, it's number 93. This time Matt Allen got belted back. 2-gap. That bounced to play Simmons. And Allen even had a good drive angle on the guy. Had a good drive angle on him, and the guy still belted him back. Got overpowered. No gain. That, again, 2 safeties deep. Safeties didn't even have to get involved. Just guys beating just beating blocks. So now later in the game, in overtime, it was interesting. They didn't go with Matt Allen. They went with Samac, and I think they went with Campbell too. And Campbell graded out pretty well in some of these. Carrick continues to grade out pretty well. I think though in overtime, they went with Jarvis at tackle, Carrick, Samac, and I think Duplain and Campbell. Buter did okay also. A lot of the second-string offensive linemen did better in this game than the starters. In my opinion, I might be wrong, but that's the way I saw it. All right, so that was no gain. Then on 33, they did a pop sweep to Jaden Reed, and they gained 1. The pop sweep on that 3rd and 3, and then that one they did on, was it 3rd and 1, or the first play of the second half? When they did a jet sweep to Reed. Twice they tried it, both times didn't get much at all. So Nebraska was tough inside, and they were good on the perimeter too. 4th drive, that was the flea flicker drive. First play of the drive, Walker gained 8. And on that one, Duplain blocks 97 and got it done. Matt Allen got out to the linebacker that time. That was against 2 deep. And the first unblocked player was a slot linebacker, and he was gaining width on the bubble screen threat. So the play slide, the slot linebacker got width, and he was the first unblocked player. Gains 8. So they look like Michigan State on that play. Then they threw it to Mosley. Then they went flea flicker, touchdown. The next drive, 5th drive, 2 more drives in the first half. That was the counter boot. Started with Mosley. Let's go to the run play. All right, 1st and 10. Walker gains 11, outside zone. Luke Campbell and Buter, double team, got movement on a defensive end and pancaked his tail. Luke Campbell, they got that, and he comboed out to the play side linebacker, and Hayward blocked the defensive end, number 2, the weak defensive end. And Naylor had a good block on the safety. So they ran it at number 2, like I said in the pre-snap read. Campbell's in the game, Buter's in the game, double team got movement. Boom, Kenneth Walker gains 11. Luke Campbell's been playing well. It wouldn't shock me if he becomes a starter. Then next play, 1st and 10, they gained 4 on an outside zone to the short side. Walker. Again, Buter and Campbell got movement against number 95. Number 95 was a senior, I think. He was an older guy, defensive end / defensive tackle. Got movement on him. Tyler Hunt did not finish his block against 44, the defensive end. Samac was good enough against 93 inside. So Walker, gain of 11, gain of 4. Both times, Buter and Campbell doing the job. 2nd and 6, inside zone, the gain 2. Samac allowed 1.5 yards of penetration against 95, and that bounced the play. So Samac got 2 gapped. So Walker gets it, getting penetration, center, bounces the play. Now it's 3rd and 4, coverage sack. He was looking for Hayward. Hayward got tackled across the middle. They threw the flag initially, then they picked up the flag. That one, that route combination, Michigan State's done some real good creative things on offense this year. That route combination and that 3rd and 4 down in the red zone, that looked more like something that you'd see in 2018. Mosley kind of stopped on a return route, and it didn't look like they got much route expression from Jaden Reed on that. And Walker did a flare out in the flat, out with Naylor. It's kind of they're setting up a high-low over here, Naylor and Walker, and Naylor just kind of got covered. I don't know. That was 3rd and 4 in the red zone, coverage sack. I don't know what went wrong on that play. All right, 6th drive, last drive of the first half. 2nd and 5, Simmons at tailback gains 12. Outside zone, it was split zone. Campbell and Buter again, and Samac all got movement on single-team blocks. Samac with some quick feet, pyramiding out on the hip of Buter on the move, so he pyramids. So these guys are moving like this. And I can't show you the film now. I got copyright rules. There's a lineman and this is a lineman. If this is Samac, snaps it, and instead of zone blocking like this, he kind of overlaps him here. He gets outside his hip, which kind of can help the angle to scoop a guy out. So Campbell, Buter, Samac, again, a gain of 12. Again, Campbell and Buter involved. Michigan State did not have that many plays where the run game worked. I just mentioned 2 of them, and Campbell and Buter were both a big part of it. So outside zone, they gained 12. Samac, Buter, and Campbell all got movement on single-team blocks there. Samac with quick feet in the pyramid. Some people call that a pyramid technique. I don't know if everybody calls it that. So now it's 2nd and 1. Simmons gains 2 on an inside zone. Carrick and Jarvis had good movement that time. And then came the little route to Hayward, the little out route where Hayward broke 3 tackles and gains 34. The thing about that one, people forget Hayward broke tackles and it was awesome, but the initial catch was thrown high. So, I mean, Thorne was even inaccurate on that one. Threw it high. He went up. Hayward, a former high school wide receiver, goes up and makes a catch while being hit. The cool thing was he makes the catch while being hit to begin with. That was the first wow moment. Then he starts chugging down the sideline. Boom, he trucks a dude. Then boom, trucks another one. Gets knocked out of bounds. Never left his feet. All right, 1st and goal. They don't get in. 1st and goal, they throw a little flare out to Simmons, and Trey Mosley did not finish the block against the linebacker. Number 13, the dude number 13, he's the guy that played that 4th and 1 zone read when he stopped Peyton Thorne. Same dude, gets blocked by Mosley. Michigan State's been a good wide receiver blocking team all year. Mosley got into him, was trying. 13 just got off him, made a tackle. So Simmons gains a couple yards, but because Mosley doesn't finish that block, and it's a lot to ask, wide receiver against a linebacker, that's a lot to ask. And credit to Nebraska, they go with 4 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers. They don't do a 4-2-5. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but if you have 3 linebackers out there, usually you're going to be a little bit slower with that number 13, but I didn't see him getting tested or beaten a whole lot in pass defense. But if you're keeping 3 linebackers on the field, that's where it's an advantage. They throw a little flare out there to the running back. Now you got a linebacker being blocked by a wide receiver. Linebacker should win that battle. Wide receiver's trying to get a stalemate. Stalemate him for a moment, but 13 gets rid of him, makes the tackle, saves a touchdown. 2nd and goal, Jarvis false start. Remember that? He false starts, and Hayward false starts, defensive line, like everybody moves. On the left side, the defense moves, Michigan State moves, and that would have been a foul on Nebraska if Jarvis hadn't moved, I think. But because he moves over there, it's a false start, and it stalls the drive. Now it's 2nd and 10. They're trying to set up a middle screen. It gets battled down. They were really onto the screens all night. 3rd and goal, they blitz. Michigan State runs like a mesh route, crossers, and there's a little too much pressure. Walker was in for pass protection. Blitz is coming. He's looking over to the left. The blitz threat eventually comes from the right side. So he's just a little late to get there. Gives up a little bit of pressure. If Thorne had a little more time and a little less pressure, I think he would have hit Naylor. Naylor's crossing. Missed him high. So, field goal. I think I went over every single play. I'm sure this is boring for a lot of people, but I can't help it. It's the way it is. I mean, when a team struggles on offense, I like to go under the hood, like I say, and try to look for commonality with some of the problems. Commonality with some of the positive ground gainers. There were not many in that game. But anytime Michigan State gained more than 4 yards on the ground, Luke Campbell and Buter were a part of it. And I think including in overtime. I know Campbell was out there in overtime. I know Samac was out there. I don't know if Buter was out there or not. I think he might have been. And, when Michigan State, when Walker had the 23-yarder in overtime, his guard and tackles were pulling. Campbell and Buter. I wrote it, but I forgot it. All right, Fishing Dave from Midland. That was his question. I'm trying to get through these so I'm not going as long with these questions. It's the longest SpartanMag Live ever. Apologize. Ramiro from Denver says, what is a good cure for shingles? What is a good cure for shingles? Chicken soup. Go Green 35 says, Complex talk about Spartan Stadium. The down and distance was wrong. It's more of that stuff. We should move on here. Well, this is Nolan from Grand Rapids. I might as well read his thing. He took time to post. He says, as some have already said, the down and distance. Oh. Somebody.
Call from.
Tarnew.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
Tarnew, are you calling from Los Angeles, California?
Yes, sir.
It's 8:30 at night out there in Los Angeles. You're still up with us. Out here in Michigan, it's 11:30. I've put everybody else to sleep.
I'm wide awake, man. I'm enjoying your show.
All right, Tarnew. That's your name, Tarnew?
Yes, sir.
You been on the show before?
First time on the show.
Great to hear from you. What's going on, man?
Man, I want to ask you a question, man. I'm a Spartan alum, class of May 98.
Yeah.
What's your assessment? What's your? I know, right? What's your take on Thorne right now?
Well, a lot of things in college football, you have to wait to the next act.
Right.
Man, I thought he looked really good in the first 3 games, better than I thought. I mean, I thought he looked good against Penn State. I knew he had this in him. I wasn't sure we'd see it this quickly. I thought he was surgical in those first 3 games. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he got knocked around in this game. I think Nebraska hit him hard a few times. I think it affected his judgment. I think it affected his accuracy. To his credit, he criticized himself. He said he left some plays out there. He missed on some things. Now, if he plays like that every week, and misses open receivers on 3rd down and 1st down, they need better than that. But I think he'll revert back to being what he was and build off of that. I think this was a one-time deal where he got rocked, and he got rocked for good reason. He was going after it full tilt, chin first, took some hits to move the chains, trying to move the chains. So I think he's okay.
Yeah.
I like he's a sophomore. He's a sophomore. I liked against Miami when he took some sacks rather than forcing it. Also in this game against Nebraska, when Michigan State was down 7, there were a couple times when he took a sack on the 4 verticals when they didn't have a side adjust for him. That play, I was talking about this with Ron last night. If that were Kirk Cousins as a sophomore, bless his heart, Kirk would have forced a pass right there and thrown an interception.
That would have been an interception, yeah.
When he was a sophomore, whenever the game started to turn and Michigan State got a little bit behind, and there was like 4th quarter, like 12 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go, 9 minutes to go. That's when Kirk would force and sometimes you have to take a risk as a quarterback, but he would try to throw it through. He would try to throw it through a wall. Thorne, to his credit, has not made the big mistake. He threw an interception on that opening drive or the second drive. I can't remember which it was, but I think maybe the first drive. That safety being deep. Yeah, it was the first drive, and I think we got to wait and see about his arm strength. I'll leave that up to some other experts, but I think he might have connected with Reed on that if he'd have put 12 more yards on it. I don't know if he was trying to.
Yeah.
I don't know if he just ran out of arm. That was a 45-yard throw. I think he's got more arm than that. I just watched that again tonight, and I didn't realize that the safety, and on that play, it was a combination coverage. The corner who was covering Jaden Reed opened up and allowed an inside release like he was playing cover 3 zone. Okay, so he's like bailing, so it looks like zone if you're just looking at that. So if you're Peyton Thorne and he's the first guy you're looking at, it looks like zone. But everybody else is in man-to-man. But the safety's back there. So what I don't know is if it was like 2/3 of a cover 3 where the safety is playing cover 3 with that corner and everybody else is man-to-man, or if the safety was just flat, just cover 1 and helping anybody. Now, here's the thing. If he looked at Reed first, it looks like zone. Secondly, if he looked at the safety his shoulders were perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. The safety was facing the complete other side of the field. So that safety had to turn and do a 180 to get back over the top to make the interception. So my point is, I'm not going to say it was a bad read, because in that instant, he sees zone and he sees the safety's shoulders the other way. I can see why he threw it there. Where the ball wound up, it's like, man, he's thrown into double coverage. No, he probably just missed. I think he was inaccurate, left it too much in the middle of the field. Plus, I don't know, maybe was that safety baiting him? I don't know. He might have. That guy might have been playing brackets with that corner all along, but turned his shoulders initially, knowing he was going to go back to flat to the line of scrimmage. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'd have to talk to. Back in the old days, I got to
rewatch that play. Are you talking about the interception?
Yes.
Yeah, I got to rewatch that play because it seemed like Naylor was coming all the way back to make a defensive play. So I want to see like what that safety was doing before he threw the ball.
Was it Naylor or Reed? I can't remember who the receiver was. Was it Reed or was it Naylor?
That was Naylor.
Okay,
yeah,
Naylor.
That was Naylor.
My bad. Yeah. So he's looking at the receiver. The corner bails, shows zone, and the safety has his shoulders pointed that way, but he ends up turning them back this way and makes the interception. But yeah, I think the replay, it might have been when they came back from commercial. They showed it from the end zone angle, and that's when I noticed that today for the first time. Sometimes teams will do a cover 3 where one corner is in man-to-man everywhere the guy goes, and the rest of the coverage is like 2/3 of a cover 3, and everybody else is in zone. It's like cover 3 lock. DJ Durkin used to do it at Florida, then he did it a little bit at Michigan, then he did it at Maryland. I think he's at A&M now. But and other people do it. The Seahawks have done it, and Hazleton is from the Seahawks lineage with Richard Sherman. So Michigan State will do some of that, where they'll go press man, one guy big corner, and it'll be 2/3 cover 3 with the other 2 guys. That's what I thought this was initially, but it was the inverse of that. It was one guy playing zone and everybody else was man-to-man instead of one guy man-to-man and everybody else zone. I don't know, but it's that's why it's a great sport. But Thorne, to answer your question, I like him. I think he's good.
Okay.
I think he got smacked in this game a couple times.
Okay.
Secondly, here's the other problem. Secondly, in this game, he did not have a good ground attack because Nebraska was good at stopping the run. And they stopped the run without loading the box. They stopped the run with 2 safeties deep. So as a quarterback, you don't have a run game and you're thrown against multiple safeties. You know? So that
our O-line was getting demolished.
Yep.
You know, every time, I mean, they were getting beat.
And we talked about that earlier in the show. Did you hear me talk about when Nebraska would change it up in one gap once in a while? They beat Jarvis that time once, and they beat Duplain and Horst one time. One time for a loss of 5, and one time they got it off the field on a 3rd and 1. So they're a tough physical 2-gapping team, and when they go one gap, it caught them off balance. And guys like Jarvis got beat one gapping by that guy. It's not like he physically got caved; he just got out quick. It's like when some dude is like hitting you in the body, then you cover your body and it hits you in the nose. You know what I'm saying? They landed the punch, and I give them credit. And the reason Nebraska was able to do that and build off their success is because they stopped the run initially, and then after that, it just compound interest. So they're good. Nebraska's pretty good on defense. They kept Oklahoma in check the week before. The bad thing for Nebraska is the way they crapped the bed against Illinois in that first game in week 0, because everybody in the country watched that game because that was the only game on. And you know what they looked like? They looked like Michigan State last year in the opener against Rutgers. Remember? Michigan State was they were not that team, but on that day they were. Nebraska is not that team, and they never should have lost to Illinois. I mean, right now they should be 3-2 with a loss to Oklahoma and then this loss to Michigan State. You know, Nebraska looked good against Buffalo. Buffalo is good. Buffalo won the division in the MAC last year. Pretty good team. They lost their head coach. Leopold went to Kansas. Buffalo's good. And Nebraska mopped the floor with Buffalo, like 28-7 or 28-3, something like that. And Buffalo's pretty good. The next week, Buffalo played Coastal Carolina, who's in the top 15, and that went down to the wire. Buffalo took Coastal Carolina to the wire. So Nebraska destroyed Buffalo. Nebraska's pretty good. I don't know if it's ever going to – that's one thing I like about college basketball. Because at the end of the year, if you're good, you don't have to worry about your record. You'll get your shot. Nebraska's, that's a great thing about college football too. Their season's been bruised. They lost to Illinois. They shouldn't have lost to Michigan State, but they're a pretty good team. They do some things well, and they're getting better if they can hang together.
Let me ask you this: do you think we should utilize our tight ends more in terms of offensive plays? I know we use our tight ends for blocking or whatever, but in terms of catching the balls and everything.
They've not targeted Tyler Hunt as much. Tyler Hunt had 2 catches against Miami that really changed the momentum of that game. Against Miami, Michigan State's offense was struggled the first 2 possessions. Then the 3rd possession, they hit a hot route to Tyler Hunt, and then I think a curl or something. He helped get them going. Tyler Hunt's not been playing as many snaps lately. He did not get targeted in this game. Connor Hayward's been playing more. Not only as an H, but now that you're seeing Hayward on the line of scrimmage a little more. Hayward was targeted 3 times. And, guys like, Parks Kissinger comes in and blocks a little bit. We've not seen Burghorst at all. And we've not seen the kid from Ohio, the Gillison, who started a little bit 2 years ago. Gillison is just not. He's not in the picture. So if they had really good tight ends, they would use them because offensive coordinator Jay Johnson loves to use tight ends. They're just they're a little low on talent at that position right now.
Okay, got you. Man, I enjoy your show, man. Please keep it up. Whatever I can do to support the show, let me know. The way you break things down to the science, you get very detailed with every single snap, every single schemes and plays, and it just, I'm dialed in, man. So keep it up, man. I'm right now watching the show, so
all right,
love it.
Appreciate it. Tarnu out in Los Angeles. Are you in Los Angeles?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. We'll keep it good out there. All right.
All right.
All right, be good. Thanks for calling in. Really
All right,
appreciate your kind words, too.
Oh.
Really appreciate it. Take care.
Appreciate you, man. Keep it up, man. You will hear from me some more.
All right, thanks a lot, Tarnu. Don't be strangers.
All right,
Thanks a lot.
all right.
There he goes. Tarnu, Los Angeles.
Go
Appreciate it.
Green.
There he goes.
All right.
I would say go white, but I'm a professional. I can't do that. You know, but
man, I got tons of questions, man. I can talk to you forever on football, man. It's just, I'm excited, on this new, air of refreshment of what's coming into with Michigan State,
Yeah.
And even with the transfer that's leaving Michigan State, the thing, I could be wrong. I think the difference between Mel Tucker and Mark D'Antonio, Mark D'Antonio is so loyal to his players. He probably would have kept the guys, most of the guys who transfer versus what Mel Tucker is doing. If you're not good to start, then you just you're not good. Then you find somewhere else to play.
It's a different approach. It's a different approach, no question about it. All right, man. Let's go. I appreciate it, Tarnu. You be good.
All right.
There he goes.
Call from.
Hello.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
No, we're not going to accept that one. I know some of you guys are out there trying to do not so good with us, so we gotta keep an eye on things. But Tarnu, is good to hear from him. All right, let's get back here to the mailbag, and we'll wrap this thing up. Actually, these questions, let's see if I can go through these quickly. Nolan from Grand Rapids, as some have already addressed, the down and distance was wrong almost all night. I hear you on that. I wouldn't be surprised also if Alan Haller, I'm sure he was aware of it also. He says, Nolan in Grand Rapids says, what's up with the new team entrance song? I don't even think I heard Swag Surfing being played. Swag Surfing. I just saw the team run out and virtually nothing. I think you're right. I was listening for it too. I didn't hear it. Now, it used to be, you play your entrance song, and then when the team comes out, the band plays the fight song. So the entrance song is not really the entrance song per se. It's like the pre-entrance song, but I didn't really catch the coordination on that. He says, I could not hear one word the ref was saying. Was this due to the new stadium DJ? I don't know. Good question. Like I said, I understand that a lot of people are upset about this. I'm in the soundproof booth up there. I'm kind of trying to get a feel for what's going on out there. Let's see who does this time.
Call from.
Ben.
To accept, press 1.
All right, this time
To
we'll
send
go
a
ahead. We'll
voicemail,
try it.
Press 2.
All right, let's go to Ben in Pontiac. How you doing, Ben? Welcome to SpartanMag Live.
Hi. You guys are doing a great job. I just want to say thank you and keep up the great work. And optimistically, I'll call another time where maybe I can get a question in or something. But keep it up. God bless you. I'm a Spartan for life forever.
Wow.
And my family. So thank
Awesome.
you guys.
You gonna have a question?
78.
1978?
Comments, Kirk Gibson, the whole bit, Smiley
Wow.
Crestwall, all that, So
Wow.
I was fortunate enough to be in with Magic and all that, many stories, but you have my number if you can give me a call.
All right.
Off the record, because I have stuff that, would deflate a lot of U of M fans
Whoa.
and things like that.
Wow.
So
nothing you can share with nothing you can share with us here. Nobody's listening. Nothing you can share with us here.
Okay. Do you know who Rick Leach is?
Yeah, maybe we better not go there. Maybe we better not.
Oh.
I think we'll go the high road.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, because you understand he was a crack addict and was missing in New York City playing for the Toronto Blue Jays for almost 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. But
Okay, well, and because I put my foot in my mouth, so thank you for taking the high road, because I went to the Ryder Cup near my, when it was Oakland Hills in Michigan, and talked with a guy on the bus because you can't park there. And I always bring that up because I'm a retired Detroit public school teacher, coach,
Nice. Okay.
academics.
Nice.
And I despise U of M, dislike, pardon me, because that's a cruel word to use and a waste energy. But, they didn't want us to be a university.
No.
And I'm sure you're aware of On the Banks of the Red Cedar, the movie about the 60s, Duffy Doherty and all that. And finally that's coming to fruition because...
As it should. as it should.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
yeah, and people don't know that.
And I am proud of that. Like the previous caller was talking, he said he gave a go green, but I don't do a go white. I just don't do that. I'm trying to be professional.
Yeah,
I don't do.
Exactly.
I got the stadium in the background, all that stuff, but I'm not wearing Michigan State stuff. There won't be any pom poms. And I had the Perlis helmet back there in the bookcase when we used to have that as the backdrop. But I'm not a pom pom guy.
Hold on.
But
who am I talking with?
Jim Comparoni, SpartanMag Live.
The real guy?
Yeah. You're on the air right now.
I'm not. Oh my God, I didn't know. Okay, pardon me. No. My God.
Well, do you want me to go back and delete this? I can delete this. You're live right now.
No. That's. Oh, I didn't know.
Oh, you thought
I wanted to talk to you off the record.
Oh.
And I thought it was one of your helpers.
Oh, you thought that I was a screener.
Yeah.
Exactly. Our screener.
Yeah.
We do have a screener that screens calls sometimes, but not right now.
Okay.
You go straight on the air. I meant to tell you that I've got some of the callers flagged so I can see who are returning callers. If you're not a returning caller, I'm a little bit leery because I might hit the dump button real quick because we don't have.
That's why I called and.
That's what. So the Rick
and you dumped me because you didn't know me.
Yes.
But
the Rick Leach thing is on. So if you want, I can go back and delete that. Once this goes live, I can go.
It doesn't matter. But I would like to talk to you during the day because it's late. Because I know friends of Schembeckler, his second wife, and they all. I'm sure you know this, but yeah, he did it. And how do I approve? Well, he ran the Tigers in the Jack Morris incident. You recall that, correct?
Jack Morris incident with Schembeckler?
The Jack Morrison, yeah. Do you recall that?
No. Was it reported?
Yes, you got to look it up. He, when women were first invited into the clubhouse.
The sports writer.
I will. And she was from Harvard, I think, or an Ivy League school.
Yeah.
And he said, I only talk to women when they're on top of me or I'm on top of them. And
Jack Morris said that to a female reporter.
Yeah. Exactly, and
she was an intern. She was an intern at the Free Press at the time.
That's why you know these things, like Mark Fidrich getting beat up with a pool stick in off the 75. Not Highland Park, but the one over. Yeah, I'm a native Detroiter, and I love the Spartans. I changed my life, and there's just so much. I was a freshman RA, so I am somebody who used to be. And I'm reliving my things as I'm over 60, and I just really appreciate your show, and so do a lot of other people, and you do make it so that people can understand it, who have, whether they played football or not. And so I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate that. The sport has changed a lot since when we play. So you got to keep up with. It's hard to keep up with these things. I appreciate you saying that. We try to. I just went over every play that they ran pretty much in this show, and some people are like, "Man, I don't want to hear that." Some people don't want to hear X's and O's at all, and that's okay. If you don't want to hear that, or if you don't want to, but we just always try to operate from the angle. We're trying to learn things as we go, and there's some people out there that like to know more of what they're seeing. Not everybody does, and that's okay. But that's one of the things. But at SpartanMag.com, SpartanMag.com, we try to do everything. We try to give X's and O's analysis.
And you're doing great. What I would like to see is if you could get trivia facts. You could get 200, 400 trivia facts and have a young, good-looking girl, because girls are eye candy, and just have them do a video saying Spartan Stadium holds 76,000 people or whatever. Like I say, I was an RA, you learned a lot of that stuff, and just to add something in the middle or near the end, to spice things up.
Of the show
it's
here?
It's just an idea. I'm not saying I have great ideas, but I was a WDET disc jockey for a bit in, the public radio in Detroit, W Detroit.
Yeah.
And I just think that you are an undiscovered gem, so to speak.
All right.
And,
I appreciate it.
Please keep it up, and I hope to have some time to talk to you about this stuff, because I just think, you can still go the high road, but, I dislike U of M quite a bit, even though I went to a lot of their games in high school and everything, and, now I call it the shite house. You know what I mean? Not the big house, but
okay. All right. Stay, keep it right there.
And well, you've been there. It just stinks. You know what I mean? It's overcrowded, and so. But I'm just calling to say thank you very much, and I just think that you're an undiscovered gem that is being discovered by more and more people as we keep winning.
I appreciate that, Ben.
That, Ben. Whether we win or lose, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So,
right.
Okay.
All right, Ben.
God, I sure was pretty good. Thank you very much, sir. Have a great week.
Take
and
care,
a great life. Thank
Thanks.
you.
You too,
okay.
Man. Wow.
Okay.
Appreciate it. There goes Ben. Wow. Ben was kind of all over the map there a little bit. I don't subscribe to all of his viewpoints, but I respect his opinion. Ben from Pontiac. He's having a good night. Let's see here. Devin from Vegas says, Jim, Tucker and the Michigan State continue to rotate the offensive line in hockey line fashion. Do you think this continues throughout the rest of the year? Yes, I do, for the reasons I just mentioned. We just went over some of the positive plays in the first half, and Luke Campbell was a part of them. Blake Buter was a part of them. Samac was out there. Some good, some mixed bag a little bit. Carrick, I think Matt Carrick's has been grading out well. So, yeah, I think it's going to keep happening. He says, what are the pros and cons do you see from this approach? Well, they have 9 guys with starting experience. Sometimes you can switch for the sake of switching. You might find something. Sometimes coaches will change things just to see if something will work. And it works, and they may not know why until later. But when you've got different components out there, that's a strength. Not many teams do it this way. They weren't really planning to do it this way. They just have an excess of players, so if things are not going well, they can go to some plan Bs. And in this game, plan B worked a few times. And then they went with plan B in overtime and got that counter to work, counterplay. All right. What do we have here? We've got Jim from Temecula, California. This guy posts a lot, and I always try to commit it to memory how to say this, and I always blow it. Temecula, California. Not sure. He says, is there a third option at center? Move a guard over to center, perhaps? He says, it just seems like the centers, Allen and Samac, are the weak link of the offensive line. Would like to see the best 5 offensive linemen on the field. I don't think Allen and Samac are part of that 5. All right, Jim, I respect your opinion. Third string offensive center right now is Jacob Isaiah, and he's not quite there. In terms of moving someone else, I don't know if they've ever tried. I know Buter has played some center. He's not as good as Allen. I don't think they've ever tried Jarvis. He's been, guard and tackle his whole career. Duplain, I don't know if he's tried it or not. I think they've probably thought of it and looked into it, but Allen and Samac are the best they've got right now. Pack the Woodshed. That's the guy's name. It's Blake from Grand Rapids. He says, Jim, how does Nebraska's defense, especially its front 4, stack up against the rest of the Big Ten? Are Saturday night's offensive woes likely to be seen again this season, and against who? I got to watch Penn State a little bit more. I've watched them, but I've not really studied how Michigan State would match up. Michigan, I've looked at them. They're running that 3-4 now. And, Hutchinson creates some problems. I don't know if, Ross got dinged up. I don't know how he is. I haven't heard. But not quite the way Nebraska does it. I don't think Michigan State will see quite that type of thing. Good defensive tackles who are 2-gap, proficient at that, and also can change it up with a 1-gap and create problems. With good linebackers, quick, can hit and shed, no false steps. The whole front 7, pretty good. So, no. I've said this earlier in the show, but I don't have a great answer right now, but I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think if they played, I think Wisconsin has some of that in the front 7. Sanborn's good, and some of those D tackles are good. Was it number 13 or number 19? Hellbig or Harbig or something like that. Had a real nice sack for Wisconsin against Penn State. So Wisconsin's good up front. Iowa's good up front, but Michigan State doesn't play those 2 teams. Mike from Battle Creek says, Keon Coleman not playing makes me nervous. He might not be long for East Lansing. Tough group to crack, and I am all for a red shirt, but not sure he is up for a red shirt. Good point. Keon Coleman is a guy, a lot of ability, really impressed the coaches early on in camp. Got on the field a little bit in the first game, I think. I have not seen him since. So it makes you nervous. Good reason to be nervous. He's a guy who I've said is going to be high maintenance. talented guy, but I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that I've heard anything, but I understand your concern. And Mike from Battle Creek also says, what's going on with Deshaun Mallory? He's lost too much weight, or just have other players been outplaying him? He is drowning on the depth chart. You're right, he is drowning on the depth chart. Deshaun Mallory played a little bit last year. This was supposed to be his year to become a starter or potentially become a starter. And it's not worked out. He only played about 5 snaps in this game. And I had the snap count somewhere, but the thing is, Maverick Hansen is playing well. And Maverick Hansen had some good moments in that game. Probably the most Maverick Hansen has played, and graded out well in a lot of ways. Hansen had a tackle for loss. That was on an inside zone in the second quarter. And on that play, Maverick Hansen, Michigan State does a lot of two-gapping. They do some one-gapping too, mostly two-gapping. But on that play, Hansen one-gapped and had a tackle for loss. Later in the game, 2nd and 11 in the red zone, Jalen Hunt and Hansen were both two-gapping. They were firm. Hansen took on a double team and didn't give any movement and continued to command that double team. Didn't let the guy get out to combo. So Hansen double team, didn't move, and was good. Fletcher was on the field, solid, squeezing down a little bit. Run play, gain of 1, and the defensive line made the play. Then on 3rd down, bubble screen, incomplete, field goal. So Hansen was on the field late in the drive because they've been on the field for a while, can go to second-string defensive lineman and get good play from Hunt and Hansen. Hunt played the most snaps, I think, of any time all year and had some good moments. There's one time when Hunt two-gapped and penetrated, got into the backfield. It was a touchdown. It was when Adrian Martinez turned and faked a handoff to the tailback and kept the ball like behind the blocking and went in for a touchdown. Hunt penetrated so well and was right on the running back. It actually opened up I think that helped open up something for the quarterback. But that was like Hunt's best play of the game. But it didn't work out because the ball was going the other way. He did his part successfully, and he showed some strength there. But so you've got Slade playing really well, and Hunt is starting to play well, and Hansen's playing well. Who's the other defensive tackle? Anyway, Mallory's fallen to the 5th defensive tackle, and that means only about 5 snaps in this game. So that's disappointing for him. I took these notes, but I can't find them as to who the other defensive tackle. Well, who's the starter? Come on. You got Slade. Who's the other one? Barrow. And Barrow's playing well. So Slade and Barrow are good. Hunt got in and did some things. Hansen's getting better. So Mallory's been surpassed now by Hansen, and now that Hunt is healthy. And Hunt did some good things. So Mallory, he lost some weight, and he has lost some power along with it. He lost all that weight, and he looked really good. But he said toward the end of training camp that the coaches wanted him to put 10 more pounds back on. So that was an indicator right there that he's not, that losing that weight, he lost some strength. I mean, he used to be like this big 350-pound jumbo, immovable guy. He's not that guy anymore. He's slimmed down, he's added quickness, but it's not like he's crazy quick. So he's not crazy quick, and he's not as big as he used to be, and it hasn't turned out that great so far. Dan from Ada, Michigan says, thanks, Comp. Why didn't we see more screen passes on Saturday like we saw against Miami? Beasley's injury on the depth chart, what does that impact? Beasley, they're going to miss him. Excellent leader, excellent defensive end. They're going to miss him. It's good that Panisha is playing real well. Pietrowski's coming along, too. Jordan played more. There was one play when he got moved off the line of scrimmage. Another one where he penetrated and looked decent on a pass rush once. But they're going to miss Beasley. Why didn't we see more screens? Michigan State set up a couple of screens, and Nebraska sniffed it out real well. One was that second down play, the second to last play of regulation for Michigan State, and another time in the red zone they tried one, and it got sniffed out. So Nebraska was just really hip to it. And that's one thing, if you're a zone team, you are less susceptible to screens. So they're a zone team. And they kept 2 safeties back. They had the luxury of keeping 2 safeties back because they were stopping the run with a standard number up front. If you stop the run with a standard number, you got 2 safeties deep. There's tighter windows back here, and you got eyes in the backfield. So quarterback scrambles only are stopped for 5 yards, and you can smack them rather than if man-to-man they get out for 30 yards on you. So you're less susceptible to the quarterback keeper. You're less susceptible to screen passes. If you've got the luxury of stopping the run with a standard number, keeping 2 safeties back. That's what Nebraska had. Just makes everything more difficult for you. Ronnie M671 says, have you watched any film of Western Kentucky? If so, what will they do that may cause us to stumble? Also, is this a classic trap game? Yes, it is a classic trap game because, first of all, they're pretty good. Secondly, they almost beat Indiana. Thirdly, Michigan. And when you have a mid-major opponent crammed into the middle of a Big Ten season, you can't help but let down. Big Ten is, because of the Big Ten Network, they changed the schedule. They put some Big Ten conference games at the beginning of the year, Michigan State against Northwestern. If you put conference games there, it helps your television ratings. It helps your television package, helps your inventory, the number of conference games you have through the course of the year. You can sell more. It's better for the Big Ten Network. It makes the Big Ten Network better on Labor Day weekend than it would be normally if everybody was playing non-conference mid-majors. So if you're going to play those games early September, you're still going to play some mid-major guarantee games. So those have to come in the middle of the year now. And you run the risk, you're playing Western Kentucky. I don't care who you are, even as a fan, you're like, okay, this is a breather, right? Am I right? Well, you're wrong. This is not a breather. And the players, they're going to try to guard against it. The coach is going to try to guard against it, but it's probably human nature. I don't know if it's human nature. It's just the way we're taught to think. Major conference teams and mid-major teams. So Michigan State's going to be down a little bit. They just are. And next week, what is it? Indiana the week after? Or Rutgers? I can't even remember. But yes, you just played a big one against Nebraska. You stole a victory. You're 4-0. You're number 17 in the country. And you're probably looking, and these Big Ten games have been battles. There's more battles to come. You got a mid-major coming to your place. Yeah, you might be down a little bit. Meanwhile, Western Kentucky, it's Super Bowl for them. Yeah, they thought they let one get away against Indiana. Now Western Kentucky, all these players who thought they were good enough to play in the Big Ten or the SEC or some major conference want to prove it against the big boys. They beat Arkansas 2 years ago. So it's a tasty treat for them. They just saw they could go toe-to-toe with Indiana. They want to take on Michigan State. Michigan State's undefeated. They're going to play the number 17 team in the country. Western Kentucky's going to be sky high. Yes, it's a classic trap game. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying they're going to stumble, but it's the exact same thing that Minnesota ran into against Bowling Green this week and lost. Same thing Iowa ran into with Colorado State and almost lost. And Colorado State, I'm not saying they're a mid-major. They're a mid-major plus. They're Mountain West. But you play a non-conference mid-major in the middle of the year like this, you're asking for a letdown. And if you have a letdown against a team who's pretty good, you could have a problem. So Western Kentucky, air raid, like I said, they'll complete their short passes. They get them out quickly, and you got to chase them around. You better tackle in space, and if you get out too wide, boom, they got the run right up the middle with quick guys, quick feet. All right, Amosio 53 from Perrysburg, Ohio says, why did we not use the tight end on Saturday? Seems that we didn't do a lot with that position until the big play with Hayward. With the pass rush we faced and the speed, the defense crashed the line. Seems like quick hitters on a 10-yard route would have been there. Yeah, we just talked about that with Tarnu from Los Angeles wanted to know about tight ends also. We went over it. Hayward's doing what he can. Michigan State targeted him 3 times. Michigan State only threw 23 passes. So here's the old question. If you want to see the tight end catch the ball more, who do you want to see catch it less? Would you rather see them not throw it to Reed as much, or not throw it to Naylor as much, or not throw it to Mosley as much, or not throw it to Walker as much? Tell me which of those people you would rather see targeted less, and then we'll talk about tight ends. All right. Let's go out to the captain of the Mount Elliott ski team from Metro Detroit. His name is what's that Greek word? Thermopylae? What was that place where the the Spartans had that big, it was a big victory. I don't know my history on that one. Apologize. Thermopylae? Oh, he's got Thermopylae with a TD in there. I see. He says, and he's a freshman too, he's a freshman to SpartanMag.com, which means he hasn't posted a whole lot, or he's a new subscriber. He says, any more info from coaches on why it was not a sideline warning or a penalty instead? I didn't ask about that, but that I know Tucker was mad about it. And if that would have cost them the game, we would have asked him about it, but that didn't come up. But you're right, that seemed backward. And we're talking about the play where Jaden Reed punt return touchdown, Michigan State flagged for sideline celebration. Usually you get a warning before you get a flag. And that 15-yard penalty, Michigan State's kicking off from their own 20. If that would have flipped the field and they would have run it back to the 35, 40-yard line, 2 passes, field goal, get beat, that would have been ugly. Instead, Coughlin booms it to the 5, tackle him at the 17, and ends up being a positive. That was strange. He says also, can you go into more details on overtime penalties after a turnover and what the coaches may say about it? Yeah, because on the turnover, the interception, and then there was, what was the penalty on that? Block. Didn't end up, it's interesting because Michigan State, that I didn't know the rule on that. I think there's a flag on Michigan State on the return, right? I didn't know if that was going to back Michigan State up for the 25-yard line in overtime or not. I don't know the rule on that. My bad. Brandon from Parts Unknown. He says, besides Pepper, Hank Pepper, the long snapper, which freshman do you think will burn the red shirt? Or are you surprised that the second-string offensive line got so many snaps? We already talked about the offensive line. And let me check the list of freshmen just to refresh my memory on the freshmen. Not many freshmen are playing, and I'm not surprised that that's the case. Keon Coleman not getting on the field. Ma'a Nateote played a little bit against Youngstown. Now with Chase Klein gone, I think Nateote gets a little bit of mop-up time when he can, so they can keep him somewhat knowledgeable. Carson Castile not playing. Brandon Baldwin not playing. A.J. Kirk, haven't seen much of him. Vandermark, he's in practice, not playing. Akello transferring out. Gravely, not sure where he is. Brantley's playing, so he's the one. Cameron Allen at tight end. We said in the spring that he was too thin. He's added weight, but he's not there yet. Wigginton, redshirt. Hampton Fay, redshirt. Antoine Booth. Booth was a guy at cornerback from Hyattsville to Matha. They didn't have a high school season last year because of COVID, so he missed a whole year. So I'm not surprised it's taking him a little bit. Tyson Watson moving down to defensive tackle, I think. So he's got to add some beef. He's not playing. Derek Harmon is a guy capable of playing, but they don't need him because Michigan State's good at defensive tackle. You redshirt him? Maybe so. He played a little bit against Youngstown, right? If you don't redshirt him, Derek Harmon's good enough that whether you redshirt him or not, he might be gone in 3 or 4 years anyway. Seriously. I'm not predicting that, but it's possible. You fool around and redshirt a guy, you might not get his 5th year. Ethan Boyd looking pretty good, but he's redshirting as an offensive tackle. Davion Prim redshirting at running back. So, yeah. And I think I said this on Spartan Mag Live a few months ago before the season started. I thought Brantley was a guy that would play early. And I thought A.J. Kirk could play early, but I didn't think many others would. And that's proven to be the case. We got a few more questions here. I got a lot of them. We're going to have to shut this one down. We've been going for 3 hours. I got to get to bed and get some other work done. Appreciate everybody still with us. We still got a lot of people watching. Let me zip through here real quick over here in the chat area because a lot of people took time to post over here, and I want to make sure I didn't miss out on anything. Parker K, not hate the kid, but Girvin looked 2 awful angles on hitch routes against Miami. That's when he missed those 2 tackles. It definitely hurts the depth. I don't think I ever saw Girvin try to turn around and locate the ball in the air. Fair point. Joseph May says, I understand Girvin, but not Klein. Klein has been good for the rotation. I agree with that. Doug Celia says, Gordon, he went to see the Auburn 4-star commit. Oh, that was the question to Gordon Tanona about the 4-star running back that Piegler went to watch when they were down in South Florida. Let's see here. And so he went to Georgia to watch Damari Alston. I don't know. I got to look into that a little bit more. Let's see. Don Strait says, let's get some thumbs up going. Appreciate that. Jim Carlisle says, I know that the coaches, Jason Killip had that covered for us a couple weeks ago. Coaches went out and watched some high school players in South Florida when they were down there. I've been focusing so much on what's going on in the field right now that I didn't follow up on that to commit that to memory. Jimmy Carlisle says, hey, just wanted to stop in and say I appreciate all the YouTube uploads. Appreciate that. Doug Seeley says, what are the chances against Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan? I said a moment ago, to get to 9-3, you need to win one of those three. And I think that's possible. Penn State, what are they going to look like Thanksgiving? That's a long way from now. Look pretty good right now. Clifford keeps getting better at quarterback. He's got some foot quickness there. Noah Kane at running back. I watched the Auburn game and I watched the Wisconsin game. They just kind of hung around in the Wisconsin game. I just watched the Wisconsin game like 3 nights ago. I know it happened 3 weeks ago, but I didn't get a chance to watch it until recently. Penn State. I know they're number 4 or 5 in the country right now, but number 5, Dotson, the wide receiver, is a threat. And, that experience at quarterback is big. I've watched them and I had some opinions, but I can't recall what they are. We'll be studying them for later. Michigan, I studied Ohio State closely in that Oregon game. I thought that was fascinating. Man, what's going on there with defense? I'm not sure. They're going to have some more games where they struggle, though. I got to believe. They're changing the coordinator situation there. I didn't watch the Akron game. I don't know. I'll say this. I don't think Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State can look at every game of the schedule and say, man, we're running the table. I don't think any of those 3 teams can say, man, we're going to beat Michigan State. They may, but I don't think any 3 of those 3 can say that game's a lock. Dont1 says, Girvin looks like the 5th best corner behind Williams, Kimbrough, Brantley, Flowers, Gross, all look better than Girvin. Well, Gross is no longer a corner. Flowers is a safety now. But in terms of defensive backs, I'll respect your opinion. He says, but he's probably looking for playing time now somewhere else. Good luck. George Page, the former keyboard player for Surrender Dorothy, says, Jim, do you believe, was it keyboards or drum, George? He says, do you believe our strength and conditioning program with nutrition has impacted our kicking game this year? Coughlin is much stronger, and Behringer is the unsung hero with punting. Dude, I put out a tweet after Behringer started booming a couple, and I said, time to include Behringer among the list of improved players during the offseason. Strength and conditioning, I know they've done a lot more with stretching. If you just go watch pregame stretch or, pre-practice stretch, but you'll see it during pregame too. They're doing stretches I've never seen them do before, and they are very scientific and state-of-the-art on this stuff. And I know the previous strength staff, they were scientific and state-of-the-art also, but state-of-the-art of maybe an earlier time. They were really on it in the early 90s and mid-90s and late 90s. But I think Novak has brought a little more new age to it, and they do some different type of stretching. Does that help these kickers? I don't know. But Coughlin went out there during the open practice at Spartan Stadium 5 weeks ago and hit a 55-yarder. And they lined up to do a 60-yarder at Miami and missed it. No, at Northwestern and missed it. Then he came out at halftime and made a 60-yarder. Now, that was now with a snap and a hold placement and rush, but he's got the leg to go from 60. I don't remember him having the leg to even think about attempting from 60 in the past. It's a fair question. I don't know the answer. I'm going to look into that, though. Jim McCarthy says, nicely done, Comp. Keep up the great work, Comp. Casey says, here's what I said on game day. Casey said, Nebraska can beat Bama 1 out of 3 times because they are a good team. I'm not concerned at all. KC. I don't know what that means, but I'm buying. Keith Craigle says, you're the best, Comp. Thanks, Keith. He says, now I know what 2-gapping means. There you go. Green Thumb says, can Sparty handle the clout? Not getting a whole lot of clout yet, but fair question. MSU number 1 fan says, when will we see Russo as a starter? Will they put Eli Collins on punt return? Eli Collins, no, after seeing what Jaden Reed did, they're going to stick with that. Russo as a starter. With Thorne the way he was missing, you wonder if that crossed their mind about putting Russo in, but probably not, because Russo has shown a propensity to throw interceptions in the past. And Michigan State was one interception away from being out of that game. So they stuck with Thorne, wisely so. But Russo, I think, has ability, and if they have to go with him, I think he's fully capable of playing winning football. I mean, Thorne won that job by a little bit. Feel bad for Russo transferring to Michigan State and not being able to play so far, but the coaches believe they're going to need him at some point. Antonio Delgado says, looks like the mic got caught up in halves. Yeah, that's when we had a microphone problem earlier because I got a little bit out of control on some things. Chris Martinez says, what is the Western Kentucky team good at that we should watch for? Air raid offense, quarterback is good, can light it up, zip, accuracy, and threw for 350 against Indiana. So the Hazleton defense, 4-2-5, built to deal with air raids. We'll see how it goes. 313 Hitman says, go green, go white. Marco Rolo says they will pass it nonstop. 313 Hitman says, go green, go white. 313 Hitman says that Nebraska game was tough. Steve Smith 313 says, Section 30 checking in. 313 Hitman says, Western Kentucky almost beat Indiana. We cannot take them lightly. I agree, Hitman. Go Green says 4-0. 313 Hitman says, hey, Steve Smith 313, another Spartan from the D. Sam Kim says, Corn is not a bad team and getting better. I agree. Go Green says, if we lose to Western Kentucky, playoff chances are over. Playoff chances. Playoffs? You're talking about playoffs? Steve Smith 13 says, what's up? 313 Hitman and Steve Smith 313 are having a Detroit conversation here. White Men Can Jump 420 says, I was going crazy every play trying to help. Tim Hughes says, playoffs? Sam Kim says, don't mean to be rude, a bit early, but playoffs? Chris Martinez says, people shouldn't throw shade at Girvin. Look at all the production from Hayward after coming back. Steve Smith 313 says, 8-0 is my number. House money after that point. Stephen Iliff says, our defense is loading up against our running game. Our passing game needs to be better. Miami loaded up against the run. Nebraska didn't and did not have to. They kept two safeties deep. When I went back and looked at it again, they stopped the run with the standard number in the front, whether that be 7 or 6. Usually 6, because Michigan State usually had 3 receivers, so the standard number has become 6. They didn't have to have safety help, so they were not loading up. They were just taking on blocks, defeating blocks, not giving an inch, and linebackers were free to roam, and they were quick and smart and good with the hidden shed, and very few false steps at linebacker. They were just solid, and they did not miss tackles when they got a chance. 313 Hitman says, the world knows Kenneth Walker now. Expect Western Kentucky to load the box. Yeah. Watch the Indiana game, and they'll do some bare fronts, which is meant to stop the run, especially on second down. But also they'll play zone with no pass rush. Penix was just like bip, bip, bip. But yeah, they're going to try to stop the run. They'll load the box with that. Steve Smith says Naylor must show up next game. Now, a lot of people are talking about Naylor being an absentee. Naylor was open 3 times, and Thorne missed him in key situations. So Naylor was open. CTO says, you're the man, Camp. You're the man, Comp. You're the man. No, you're the man. You're the man. Tim Hughes says Thorne was way off in the second half. Seems like the hit he took on the diving run may have rung his bell and dinged his shoulder. Agree. I do not disagree. Let me just, I'm just going to zip through this because we got to wrap this thing up. I really appreciate everybody, all the posts here. I can't go through all of them. Old Tuck says second string offensive line played a lot, including overtime. Jarvis at right tackle. Any idea why so much second string playing? I think it's because they gave them a shot and they were more successful. We talked about that earlier, going over play by play. When Michigan State had some decent run plays in the second quarter, it was Buter, Campbell, Samac, and Jarvis at right tackle. So that's very interesting. Michigan State went with them in the overtime. You're exactly right. That was interesting. Stephen Iliff says, can we use the tight end more like Gillison? Gillison, played a little bit last year and less this year, and he's just fallen out of the loop. So Gillison's never been able to block all that well. I don't know. Maybe he'll have a storybook return. I don't know. But you're seeing Hunt and Hayward because Hunt and Hayward are better than he is. So if he got on the field, I wouldn't expect fireworks. David Quist says, not like Utah State again. Remember when Utah State came in here? And, man, they were good. And then they went and they ran it up on a lot of people. Michigan State was very good at that time too, right? Austin says, on the defensive side, what is the strength of the Michigan State defense? Do you think the defense proved in this game that they're capable of keeping Michigan State in a game, or haven't been tested by a good enough offensive to judge that yet? The strength, I think defensive tackles are good. I think, Barrow and Slade is good. And they've got enough depth to get other guys in there. Panisha, if he plays like that, that's a strength. So the combination of Panisha and Beasley would have been real good if Beasley could have stayed healthy. So D-line is good. I said earlier in the year the D-line was not as good as I thought it would be, but here in this game, the D-line showed up like I thought they could. Xavier Henderson is a strength back there at safety. He's playing as well as safety, I would imagine, as anybody in the country. And, man, he was moving on that interception. Did you see him trying to get down there to get a block? Go back and watch that interception again in overtime and watch number 3 zip into the head of the pack trying to find somebody to block. So that's a strength. They're still trying to figure out the corner situation. Doesn't look so bad now. They're still getting comfortable in linebacker. But this defense, so you're saying they were really good in this game? Yeah, they held him to, 20 points? Pretty good. They had trouble with Martinez. It's just like that Crenshaw. What was the guy's name for the quarterback for Youngstown State? In short yardage situations, those zone read keeper quarterback guys are tough. They're tough to stop. So when you look ahead to some other quarterbacks like Tagovailoa, I can never pronounce that name. I call him that Navratilova. That's not nice, right? He's good. Tua's brother, whatever his name is, he's good at Maryland, right? So, and then we talked about Vedral, the power read option for Rutgers. Michigan had a lot of trouble with that in the second half. They got the RPOs sewn in, and they're throwing it around pretty good. If you make that guy throw more than 12 yards downfield, he's not as good. But it's not like Ohio State's good on offense, but they're still trying to find themselves. That'll be a problem, of course. Indiana with Penix, good, not as good as last year so far. But in terms of just scare you to death type of offense, I don't think so. Everybody's pretty good, but I don't think Michigan State had a really good defense in 2014, but they had to play, Mariota in Oregon, and they had to play national championship Ohio State. So that was and they had to play Baylor. They played the 3 best offenses in the country. And Baylor and Oregon were state-of-the-art, pushing the envelope with stuff. Baylor was doing RPOs when they weren't called RPOs yet because they were brand new. They were the first one to do it. So that 2014 defense was really good, but they just played the best and, gave up some numbers against those teams. This Michigan State defense is pretty good, not as good as that 2014 team, but I don't see anything on the horizon like that. They're not going to play like 2014 Ohio State, 2014 Oregon, 2014 Baylor. So you can be pretty good and not get exposed. It's not like that, if they were playing Ole Miss or something. Ole Miss right now, everybody's talking about how great they are on offense, and they're probably right. The guy Carroll, the quarterback, he's starting to emerge as a Heisman Trophy favorite. I mean, Oklahoma was supposed to be great on offense. They've been great on offense for a long time, but they had trouble against West Virginia. They had trouble against Nebraska. So who's good on offense now? I don't know. Has the pendulum swung back to the defense? I don't know. To answer your question, I think Michigan State's defense is pretty good. Hey, this Western Kentucky thing is going to be a problem. You got to chase them around. That thing can get ugly. If you don't have things dialed in perfectly for those type of teams, it's not like you can make mid-game adjustments. But like I said, this is supposed to be Hazelton's. That's what the defense is built for. So we'll see how it matches up. Brian Schultz says, no way do we want that linebacker from Ohio State. I do not disagree. Kazoo Green says, any idea why Hayward was not utilized more? That's a popular question. He was one of the few guys on offense that was physical enough to knock skulls with Nebraska D. Was it a scheme thing? Tried to go to him twice on middle screens. In this thing, the post-game stats, they've got him targeted 3 times. It might have been more than that. I'm going to look up If you have a minute here, I'll just look up Pro Football Focus to see. They'll have it charted. Actually, I'm going to look it up, and I'll put it over on the board. I'm not going to bore people with that right now. I'll make a note to myself. I'll look it up and post it on the bunker. How many times Hayward was targeted? I think it's more than 3. He had 2 catches, and I can think of at least 2 other times when they had a screen set up for him and had to spike it because it was covered. So they wanted to go to him on screens a couple of times. And you got to remember, Michigan State only ran 15 plays in the second half, not counting overtime. So when you're only running 15 plays and you're going to run it 6 or 7 times, that only leaves you 8 times to throw it. So if you're only going to throw it 8 times, how many times do you want to throw to Hayward in the second half? 4 times? And then you're only going to throw, so then you're not going to throw to Naylor, Mosley, and Reed more than 4 times combined? That's what it gets down to. It's a very popular thing for people to say, why aren't we using the tight end more? It's gone on forever in football for the last 20 years. Why don't we use the tight end more? It looks good when the tight end makes a play, right? And people want to see that more. But if you go to the tight end more, you need to go to somebody else less because you can't throw it to 2 people at the same time in the same play. That's the way mathematics work. Jesse Adams from Mount Pleasant says, do you think SpartanMag will take over Allen sooner than later? Second question, any update on Collins or Beasley? I've got no updates on Collins or Beasley, and Michigan State's pretty quiet with that stuff. I mean, we'll have interviews on Wednesday. We might be able to see who's coming off the practice field. But didn't look good for Beasley, but they've not said he's out, for like the year or whatever. Hello. So, other question, when do I think SpartanMag will take over? When will SpartanMag take over? Maybe pretty soon. That could happen. I'm going to sign off because we've got problems with the microphone right now. So, everybody, thanks for playing along. Thanks for hanging out. SpartanMag.com. We'll see you next time.